as CFTC Commissioner. We also have Google Cloud's Chris Pennington, Alicia Wiesel later in the day. And so I hope you stick around. It's going to be a lot of fun. And let me turn it over to David Gurlé, or as I like to say, David Gurlé, founder and CEO of Symphony. And kick it off, David.
Thank you. It's so good to see so many familiar faces, and thanks for being with us, Diane, for the last. So let's switch to my presentation. Welcome to Symphony Innovate. This is our second event. Actually, the first event was, as Diane said, just muffin and croissants. That's the reason people came. And we didn't have content, but we had food at that time. And so they were wondering what Symphony is. Some people thought it was about music, and they turned out to be about something else. So what we're going to talk about today is the social operating system that is going to power the community. And if you think about why we are here today, is because there is a sense of strong community within financial services like I haven't seen anywhere else. I've worked at many different companies with in different industries, and there is no feeling of a community, for example, in a healthcare industry or in a defense industry. And it's only at financial services, when I used to work at Reuters and Thomson Reuters, that I heard about buy and sell side community. And I think the reason for that is because this market is really interdependent and of each other. It's a market that is really poised to work on information and making information a currency and making that currency a product, and eventually that product becomes sold, and obviously the world economy works this way. So we at Symphony want to be a facilitator of the world that makes financial services happen. And in order to do that, we need to create an operating system. And for us, we call this the social operating system. And there are three layers for that. The platform, which we're going to talk a lot about today, because that is what will enable the community to thrive and to make it much bigger than the sum of its parts. The second element is going to be around the collaboration stack. In the beginning, when Symphony was created, everybody thought we were just a messaging system. And messaging is at the heart of Symphony, because that is the nervous system that makes financial services tick. But certainly, it is way more than that, as we will see across a number of use cases today. And last but not least is the element of content. And content is a very interesting beast in the universe of financial services, because people might think of content as news or information. But actually, I think of content as anything you write into a message, anything that you send to a counterpart. It is part of the content that is created constantly, and that content becomes an information element in order to form the social intelligence of your organization. And as this becomes shareable, as this becomes shared, your organization and yourself is becoming more powerful and more effective as you want to achieve your business day in, day out. So what we're going to talk about today is a journey of past, present, and tomorrow. And there are a few announcements here and there. It's going to be an interactive session, so I'm not going to bore you to death here. And we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. And please bear with us as people come on and off stage. And we're going to try to make it fun as well. So let's think about our journey here. So we started on the platform piece, then collaboration and content. 2014, October, is when Symphony was launched. And as my dear friends at Symphony might remember, we were only half a dozen, and then we are today more than 250 people. And this was a journey that started by building something very unique. We wanted to build a cloud-based solution for financial services. And if at that time you were to go into any CISO or CIO, they will tell you that it is over my dead body that you're going to deploy any messaging solution that is mission critical to me in the cloud that is hosted by Google or Amazon. That was the message that we have received over and over again as we were building the consortia that made Symphony happen. Well, we had to start with security and compliance at the core, and that has been the journey ever since. Then, obviously, we need to connect people. For this, you need to have a directory. And what we need to build a directory that isn't a directory of everybody. It's a directory of trusted identities. And so that you know that if I'm talking to Tom Glosser, well, Tom is indeed Tom Glosser, that he pretends to be there, and I'm not talking to somebody who fakes to be Tom Glosser. And the messaging, a key component, and that's been our DNA ever since, and we continue to innovate on that. And on the content piece, we were relatively, I'm going to say, limited in our capability. People needed to search content, and obviously, we had done something very unique. As we encrypted data, how do you search content that is invisible? And that was a big investment from a Symphony perspective, because it needed to also not show a signature of what's being searched when you search that encrypted content. And today, I'm very proud to say that we continue to be the only company in the world that is commercially available, that is enabling encrypted search. And most people think it is not possible. And we made the impossible happen back then. Obviously, notifications is part of that journey. So Lauren, at that time, used to work for Reuters. And she really captured from the very beginning what we were building. We were not going after another market data provider. We were not just doing a messaging. We wanted to create this one centralized platform. And that journey has really started with these components. So we really made, in 2014, the cloud possible in financial services. And that journey helped us to go in 2015 to build on the product and launch that product. And we started by adding on the platform piece a set of APIs, and then file sharing and making sure that the intra-company collaboration was really consistent with the information policies of our organizations. And trust me, it is very complicated. Deploying a messaging system in financial services is very different than you go online and get access to any account and start using this account, whether you are doing on a WhatsApp or WeChat or your favorite messaging application. It is a whole different game. There are information policies, there are compliance rules, there are security problems, and what you can deploy here in New York, but you cannot do it in Malaysia, because you have different restrictions around data ownership and etc. It is complicated. And that has been a groundwork that we had to put in place. And as we continued our journey on content, we introduced a very important concept. It was the beginning of a concept that we will explore even further, which is the concept of signals. It is basically notifications, but we wanted to name it signal because as you build a centralized platform and that platform becomes powerful, you start having lots of noise. And what people hate, whether you're on the sell side or you're on the buy side, is noise, because you are missing the golden nugget. You are missing the important information that is going to make your day the day of your life. And we had to come up with something that actually changes this. And we'll talk a lot about the signals moving forward. It's one of the unique capabilities of Symphony. And at that time, Olivier Perkel from Natixis quoted that we are a game changer. And I think that's a very interesting observation, because what is the game we are changing? And I think the game that we are changing is that we are enabling a new infrastructure that on top of which people can do things that required independent infrastructures in the past. It is as if back before the internet days, everybody had to create their own internet. And then suddenly the internet came, and you did not need to create the AOL, the MSN network of that time. You could just create the website and then connect that to the internet, and the magic will happen. Well, we are now in an era in which the internet, from a security and compliance perspective, especially in regulated markets like financial services, is impossible. It is not there. It just does not cater to the needs. And that game-changing is this secure and compliant infrastructure. And as trust is built on this infrastructure, you are now able to see a number of things moving away from those siloed systems of the past into this new infrastructure of tomorrow. And that is the game that we are changing. And that journey is going to move in a pace that is going to accelerate, and you will see in some of the presentations today what it really means. So we launched Symphony. That was in October 2015, and that's where we had the pleasure to have Diane and the 20 journalists, and people were wondering what we were doing at that time. And I'm still wondering it. So coming to 2016, as the journey continues, on the platform piece, very key piece for us has been the open source. And I'll come to it separately. But in order to foster innovation, in order to foster collaboration, in a market that is not naturally inclined to do, as there is lots of competing interests, we wanted to bootstrap the opportunity for organizations to share intellectual property around their software that makes their life better. And the best way to do this was to create an open source foundation, which we had done actually very early on. And this is the time that we hired Gab. He's going to come on stage with me later. And then we started to lay out the foundation of what it mean in a financial services community to have open source software. Trust me, it is not easy. And we'll talk about this a bit later on. Then the era of bots began. So we start building the bots, and as the machines are rising, and we've really seen at that time a very strong interest actually to inject and extract information to and from Symphony, and that really needed to be done in an interesting and in an easy way. And so that was our big innovation in 2016 on the platform piece. And then on the collaboration, we start adding the most important building block of Symphony, which is the cross-company communication. So, and this is where Symphony gets very quickly distinguished away from other information providers as well as other messaging providers. Most of the existing legacy or even new providers of information or messaging capabilities cater to the needs of the enterprise. So you go and buy a product for the enterprise, you deploy this for the enterprise, and then you hope for the best that it is going to interconnect with the rest of the enterprise that you are working with. Well, it just doesn't happen. The lowest common denominator, I'm going to say the maximum common denominator, is actually email. And email has just so many limitations. It is a blessing and a curse of our time today. And people really face a number of challenges around the productivity that comes out of that. So by taking the powerful capabilities of Symphony and blending it with the secure and compliant infrastructure and turning it into this information highway that interconnects the different companies was a very big milestone for us. It took us a lot of effort to make it happen, and because of the security and compliance implications and everything we talked about. If you think about HSBC, JP Morgan, Citi, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and many other global organizations, they have, equivalent of cities in different countries, and deploying an information infrastructure that complies with all the regulations of Japan, of China, of Indonesia, of Switzerland, it is a very hard thing to do. And so that's what we have enabled. And on content, we continued to innovate, and this was a very important time for us because we brought Symphony Market, the app store of Symphony. And in the beginning, it was a relatively lightweight integration into Symphony. We had high hopes that publishers of applications, publishers of content, publishers of information providers will come and enrich the platform because we really wanted to stay neutral when it comes to opportunity to serve our customers. We don't want to be an aggregator of content. We don't want to be a source of information. We don't want to be in the business of trading. We don't want to be in the business of your businesses. But we want to be in the business of connectivity. You want to make sure that you have a peace of mind around that. And that is really what our focus is. And we remain very loyal to this. And if today you're going to see on stage companies like FactSet and Thomson Reuters and Dow Jones, it's because we enable their businesses to be more successful without interfering and without going into their own turf. And that is a very important thing for us. So by doing this infrastructure work, we enabled and unleashed something very important. And the quote that I want to take away from Carl, who cannot be with us unfortunately today, was the ROI. And at that time, the market started to understand what it means to pay the price of $15 per user per month back then, and look at the ROI from not only messaging perspective, but from a workflow perspective. So we launched a year after, so Symphony was launched. I announced on Innovate, the first Innovate, that we had 116,000 users, over 100 organizations, and 60,000 people in the global directory that can be connected with each other. So now taking the journey to today, and where we're going to switch from what we have achieved to what our customers and partners are doing. And let's see what we have done. So again, on the platform, a very important and a structurally game-changing platform element that we're going to demonstrate today is what we call the structured object. And so as information systems make your life every day happen within your organizations, they need to be connected to the place where work happens. More and more, work isn't happening in applications, but it's happening on a collaboration infrastructure, because this is where people and applications meet. And in order for that meeting to be rich, you have to provide way more meaningful content and way of formatting this content and interacting with this content. And so the structured objects enable this. And for techies, it is just a JSON object. For non-techies, it's just a form. And we'll see how it comes together live later on today. On the collaboration piece, mobile has become a key piece of our offering. And now we are on iOS, we are on Android, and I spend a lot of time in Asia these days. And in Asia, the world is split between WeChat in China and WhatsApp, the rest of the world, and a bit of Line in Japan. And there is a huge demand from the workforce in Asia to move from non-secure, non-compliant communication infrastructure or communication tools they use to something that their companies, their regulators bless. And it is in this context that the mobile has been introduced. We partnered with BlackBerry, and that partnership has been amazingly good, and there is way more to come as you'll see. So I'm just giving a scoop here. And we also introduced real-time communications for voice and video capabilities. And on the content, and I'm trying to keep myself relatively quiet here because we're going to have lots of announcements coming in the next few minutes. But we really focused on integrations. And so integrations is all about taking the system that you use every day and connecting to another system that you depend on. So in my life, that is the universe of Salesforce.com. And I care about our customers, I care about our revenue, I care about the issues that goes on every day. And I can't just go and log into Salesforce.com every time. And I am not writing content into Salesforce.com. I consume data from Salesforce.com. And so is from Jira, and so is from some other applications such as Zendesk and etc. And so what I needed is a way of getting the information that is pertinent and relevant to me without distracting myself and logging into different systems. So in this case, Symphony has become a proxy, kind of a gateway to all these different discrete information systems that our life depends on. And if Salesforce.com is true for me, well, if you are in the universe of HR, maybe it is another tool that you depend on, etc. So this is the type of integration that helped our life, my life, to be way better. And we start open sourcing all of those contributions to our partner and sister foundation team. And then we let the market start using it. I don't know if you know, but Jira at JP, there are thousands of users of Jira. And if you can imagine that they are on Symphony, they certainly would like this digital distance to be reduced so that they can be more productive. And Max has given us a very interesting quote here. And Max is the group CIO of CLSA from Hong Kong. And he evaluated a bunch of platforms. And he looked at Microsoft, he looked at Slack, and he looked at, obviously, Symphony and others. And he decided to go on Symphony. And not only for the security and compliance reasons that I mentioned earlier on, but because we have been innovating on collaboration, and he can innovate on the Symphony platform like nowhere else, because he has this peace of mind that if he does so, it is going to fit into their policies and without violating any of the information security framework that they have. So where are we today? So these are the latest numbers, 235,000 users, 207 firms, and 120,000 people in our global directory. If you do a simple math from last year to this year, it is doubling this number. So as I take that journey and try to look at what we've accomplished so far, as you can see, the stack of social operating system has been growing up nicely and steadily. This is not the end of the journey. As a matter of fact, it is just the beginning for us. You know, there's just so many things that we have in the backlog of imagination, our customers' imagination, the market dynamics, the competition, and it's very safe to say that there is job security for Symphony engineers. And I would like to take this opportunity to really thank them wholeheartedly, because they are really working very hard to make today happen. So thank you, guys. With that, let's look at what does it mean for us moving forward. And I was in Hong Kong not too long ago, and somebody asked me a question: is how your user is going to grow, and user base is going to grow. So, you know, we are about 235,000 today, a bit more than that as of today, and this year end we'll pass 250,000. So 250,000 is certainly going to be passed, and I'm keeping, you know, my thunder relatively quiet here. But I see already a path over 500,000 before the end of year in 2008. And as you can see, this kind of looks like an inflection point. And this inflection point is the point at which, from a mathematical sense, you have an acceleration of growth. And that is what I see from the market, and this is hopefully what you'll observe today through some of the conversations that we will have. Another further proof point of this is just look at the progress that we had with our partners. And you know, I wish we scaled the left side here, the y-axis, a bit different, because it is going to be way bigger than what actually I'm showing here. Last year, we announced 15 partners. Today, we are announcing 45, so we tripled that number. And if I were to look at the backlog and the pipeline of partners, we are going to go well beyond 100 in 2018. And I'm not counting here any of our customers' applications and content that they are building on Symphony, and they are going to go use Symphony to distribute to their own customers. And this is just in financial services. But an organization like Goldman Sachs, like BlackRock, they don't only work in financial services. They work in many different industries. They interconnect with just so many different people because they are at the hub of the world's economy. And that's been always our strategy, that we will take full advantage of our opportunity to win in financial services so that we can expand well beyond that. And you'll see us very active in some other markets as we develop our solution. So one of the most important partners that I mentioned earlier on is the Symphony Software Foundation. And I'm going to go now into the second part. Gab, come in. In the second part of our presentation as we bring our partners on stage. So Gab happens to be not only the executive director of the Software Foundation, but he also happens to be Italian. And why I say this? Because I do have apparently Italian blood. And so the brotherhood that I feel for Gab is certainly beyond the professional relation that we have. And so we've been working very closely with the Symphony Software Foundation, and Gab has been beating the drum of contributions. And he's got some very, very cool things to announce today. So Gab.
Thank you, David. Can you guys hear me? So I just want to start. Can you hear me? Yeah?
You tell me when to click.
Absolutely. So I just want to start from something that David said before, which is that this is I think a collaborative business by nature. That was what really drove me early last year when I was brought in to run the foundation. It was really the idea of there's really no way why this industry should not collaborate like other industries, have done. I come from the Valley, the Italian part of the Valley, I guess. But, clearly we all know all the sort of cultural and regulatory complexities that this industry have. And so, some of you last year might remember me being on stage and sort of, talking about giving out your intellectual property to the world. And sadly, I didn't have the same, muffin budget that David had. So it took a while, but I'm really proud to say that today we have more than 30 members organization. We have more than 60 open source projects. We have 4 working groups around, financial objects, APIs, open standards throughout the industry. So this has really taken off. But in a period of fake news, don't let me tell you that. Let the facts speak for themselves. And so I'm really proud to announce 3 main contributions to the Open Source Foundation. 2 coming from Symphony, which I'm going to quickly run through. Symphony has already contributed last week the initial modules of their next generation cloud platform, microservices-based cloud platform. We are at the very beginning, but I think the important bit here is that the development is being done directly in the open. And this is something that all of the industry is going to benefit from. The possibility of inspecting the code and from the get-go building on something that is bigger because, David talked about the platform, but the value chain really comes when you add things to the platform. And so the second main contribution that I'm announcing, and I think this is a major news, Symphony by the end of the year is going to contribute their security framework, their cryptographic libraries. And really this delivers to one of the main tenets of the foundation. Well, one of the reasons we were created was to build trust in the industry, to make sure that the security model could be inspected. And so really this is an amazing news from Symphony, and I want to thank the David and all the Symphony team for pushing this through the finish line. Last but not least, and I think I want to spend 15 seconds on this. We're announcing today, together with our good friends at Deutsche Bank, the first main contribution from, a substantial contribution from a financial services firm to the foundation. Deutsche Bank is contributing their desktop interoperability framework called Plexus, which is a very fundamental and functional part that underpins the Autobahn platform. And I think this really speaks to the awakening of this industry to actually, leveraging open source for strategic purposes for furthering the business. If you're interested to know more, we have 2 sessions today at 1 and 3:20. I will have Lawrence Miller, the CSO of Symphony, and Jim Adams, the CTO of Global Markets for Deutsche Bank. And shameless plug, you can actually come and learn more at the first executive conference for open source in financial services, the Open Source Strategy Forum on November the 8th.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I have like goosebumps here because open sourcing 2 core components of Symphony and making it public, which is our core intellectual property. This is what this company is built on: security and the future of our next generation architecture. And it requires courage, requires lots of discussion between the board and engineers to make sure that we stick to what we started with, which is we want the community to be successful. And in order for a community to be successful, you have to give before you can take. And what we are providing here is the tenets of a very important foundation for tomorrow. And just 1 minute on the Symphony 2.0. Today, Symphony runs on 2 very successful cloud platforms. Google Compute Platform, and we have a strong and a wonderful partnership with the Google team. They'll be here later today, so please go and see them, as well as Amazon. And what we have seen is that there is an opportunity to create a set of microservices which are completely independent of any underlying infrastructure. And so that you can actually not only build a messaging system like we have built, But you can have all the libraries, all the books that will help you to compose your own symphony so that you can do maybe different things than what we have built. And that is a foundation of something completely breakthrough. So we'll see what the world is going to do with that. So next person I'd like to bring on stage is Phil Snow. And Phil, please join me on stage. FactSet and Symphony have started working on a partnership for some time now, at least a year. And Phil is the CEO of FactSet. And what we have very quickly realized that, well, we have joint customers. And those customers obviously need all the assets and capabilities and features that FactSet provides. But they also need a way to interact with each other. And it just made a complete sense that we join our forces to deliver you the following experience that we're going to go through. Phil, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, David. And good morning to all of you. I think most of you know a little bit about our company, but for those of you that don't, we have a powerful suite of solutions that serve both the buy side and the sell side. A number of different workflows. We've got very strong penetration within buy side research, sell side research, portfolio management and trading, institutional sales, and a number of others. And we have a number of different products. I think the two that we're going to show today that are relevant are FactSet's flagship workstation product. We've probably got 80,000 screens total across the workflows that I mentioned earlier. And we also have a very strong award-winning execution management system called Portware that FactSet acquired 2 years ago. So we've been very busy integrating Portware into FactSet to be able to do order and execution management functions within the FactSet workstation. Symphony really is a great match for us, I think, in terms of strategy and philosophy. FactSet has sort of two main goals with our clients. We want to make you more efficient so that you can save money and do things faster. And we want to help you surface investment ideas. Some of the big themes we see out now in the industry are, when I talk to our largest clients, it's the need for consistent data from the back office to the middle office to the front office. Regulatory and compliance is obviously a big deal. And as we've gotten bigger and we're serving more workflows, we're really interested in making sure we stitch everything we do together for our clients so that they can have that seamless enterprise experience and benefit from that. I would say one other thing that's important, just in terms of FactSet philosophically, is we're an open platform as well. We've always been a very flexible tool, but we've sort of accelerated our thinking in terms of opening up FactSet and making sure that we're delivering content and value to our clients in the way that they want to get it. We're not going to make you take content and analytics through the FactSet workstation if you'd rather get it through an API or something like Symphony. So that's how we're geared internally, that's how we're thinking, and I think that's very consistent with what's happening here at Symphony. So we were here last year. For some of you may have been at the conference. We talked about 3 things we had in development. I'm very happy to say all of those are now live in the system. The first is that you can, if you follow the pointer up here that Johan has, you can launch Symphony directly from the FactSet workstation. So that's a key piece of integration. The second one now is that our Answers bot is live. So you can type in natural language search. You could type in Apple revenues. We'll give you some data and charts that are associated with Apple. And if you're a FactSet user, it will link you directly back to reports in the FactSet workstation if you want to go deeper with that. The third one is we've integrated our very popular Street Account news product. Street Account takes market-moving news for companies you care about if you're a portfolio management, a trader, an analyst. Earnings releases, earnings changes, broker recommendations, and it gets it down into a bulleted format that allows you to consume a lot of information very quickly. So a lot of our users consume that via email, but it's now integrated within Symphony and within Symphony's mobile product. So we're happy all of those are live. We're going to give you a sneak peek of 2 things today. One is something that's called Security Selector. So within Symphony, those of you that use it, I know you can use cache tag. It's going to essentially bring you to a company. Part of the issue with that is if you're looking at something very simple like domestic equity, it's going to be able to figure out across FactSet and other platforms what it is you want. But as soon as you get into more esoteric markets, different asset classes, all the way out to unlisted private companies, it's important that we have a consistent symbology if we're going to build a community of users that's pulling data from all these different places. All of you, that are on the buy side and sell side know that symbology is not an easy problem to solve. It's one that it's been a core piece of what we've done as a company, just in terms of integrating so many content sets from third parties as well as our own in the system. So what we've done is we've worked with Symphony. We've provided FactSet's identifier lookup or security lookup as part of the Symphony service. You do not need to be a FactSet subscriber to take advantage of this. And what it's doing is it's taking that cache tag and it's creating a financial object for it so that it can now link to any relevant data or analytics that you want to get from FactSet, but also from any other partner on the system. So I think that's a critical piece of functionality. If there's tons of partners that you're leveraging as part of Symphony and the identifiers are not lining up properly, it's not going to be the best experience. So I think Johan here is going to look up a Swedish company for us. Are you Swedish, Johan, by any chance? I am. You got it. OK, perfect. All right, so that's that piece of functionality. And Johan is part of a working group. I think he's leading it, actually, with the Symphony Foundation around this. I think it's elegantly called the Financial Objects Working Group. But if that's something you're interested in as a partner, I think it would be good to help contribute. The second thing that we're going to demonstrate is a cross-company workflow. So between the buy side and the sell side, we're going to show the workflow between somebody that wants to trade or purchase a bond from a broker. So we have Johan, who's our Swedish broker, and we have David, who's now in the Portware blotter looking to get a quote for a fixed income instrument. He can open up a request for quote dialog box here. If he wanted to, he could blast a number of brokers at once, and he's going to be able to reserve a quantity or ask for a certain amount of shares. When he does that, it's going to go over to Johan's Symphony instance, and Johan's getting the request for quote from David. He's going to respond to that with something. Small snag.
Here's my response.
And there it is. OK, so always the thrill of doing things live that are in development. So there it is, and then David can look at the quote, and he can also, work very closely with a broker or brokers within the Symphony instance that he has. So we're excited about this one, as well as cache tag. We're very motivated as a company to see Symphony succeed. When I go out and visit clients, there's a lot of interest in this within the marketplace, and we'd love to work with any of you that are clients in combination with Symphony to make sure that we're addressing the workflows that you really care about. So it's really you that's dictating where we can add value. So that's how we work. We think we're just scratching the surface here, but we do think this is going to be a really important year for Symphony.
Thank you, Phil.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Before you go, I'm going to keep you for one more minute.
Yep.
What are you the most excited about as you look at this opportunity for partnership between the two companies and for the market?
So there are a number of things. I think just in terms of development, the cache tag thing, even though that seems a small thing, it's foundational. And if we don't get that right, I think the whole ecosystem isn't going to come to life. So that's hard work. Mm-hmm. But I think if we do that one, collaborating with the other partners, that's going to be huge. And we're really motivated to see some more traffic between the buy side and the sell side. That's what we're excited about, and anything we can do to help facilitate that, we're all in.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very
sure.
much.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
So before I go to the next speaker here, and a friend, as a matter of fact, as well, I think what we have seen here is it's very interesting illustration of two initiatives that I shared with you earlier on. One is, well, there is a platform, there are a set of plugs and APIs, and we have just seen what I told about these structured objects, so these forms, and as this concept of structured objects become more implemented and more deployed, you can start seeing the power that's going to unleash in terms of productivity, in terms of efficiency, in terms of automation. And there's so much noise that we're going to be able to eliminate as we bring this to market. The second piece is an illustration of the power of the open source foundation. The fact that Johan is working within the confines of open source foundation to create a set of standards is an extremely important piece, because it is one of those things that you do once and you benefit many times. And rather than one organization inventing something, this is a community coming together and defining a common vocabulary, a common specification. And that becomes the standard through which this market, this industry is going to operate. It is just the beginning of an incredible journey, because there are so many opportunities, or so many languages, and so many information elements that needs to be standardized in order for your systems, in order for yourselves to be more efficient as you go and do your trades and etc. So let's now switch gear to our next partner. Let's stay with now Thomson Reuters. And for those who may know my past, I used to work for Thomson Reuters, actually for Reuters, and then Thomson Reuters when the both companies have come together. And it's been an honor and a privilege to work for Reuters, because when I joined Reuters, first of all, I had no idea what a buy side was. And so it took me a while to understand that they were just managing my money. But fundamentally, I have learned the value of neutrality. And what Reuters brand brought at that time to me was that trust is hard. Gaining trust is hard. Keeping trust is even harder. And Reuters, through its brand of, I'm going to say, the news franchise, have really spent more than 100 years to earn that. And then I kept that value as part of the brand that we are building in Symphony, by keeping ourselves as neutral as we should be, so that we enable the community to come together. So with this, I'm going to welcome on stage Mike Naughton. And Mike is the global head of financial services. To say the least, he runs the whole thing, almost. David is not here, David Craig is not here, but Mike and I have had a chance to work together in New York and in many other regions as we've been trying to push the community together. So Mike, welcome.
David,
good to see you.
Good to see you.
And I'm going to leave the stage to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David, I don't think I could have done a better introduction to the Thomson Reuters Trust Principles, so thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Good morning. I'm Mike Naughton. As David said, I'm the global head of Thomson Reuters Financial Practice Group. And I'm really pleased to be here this morning, and even more pleased to be a participant in the Symphony Innovate 2017 conference. So I think everyone here is aware that in June of this year, we announced our partnership with Symphony. And that partnership is another example of our commitment to the open platform environment. For those of you that don't know, Thomson Reuters Icon platform is a platform that allows our customer community of over 30,000 clients to take hundreds of Icon applications and share those with their customers via Icon Messenger. As a result of the partnership that we announced in June, those individuals who now have Icon and also have Symphony will be able to take those hundreds of applications, examples of those would be news or charts, and share them with their Symphony contacts. Why is that important? Because at Thomson Reuters, we actually believe that workflow and having choice in workflow is absolutely essential in today's environment. We actually believe that the Symphony community and those Symphony contacts want to be able to have access to the leading market data and content that Thomson Reuters provides. And importantly, we believe that the community that is represented here today wants to be able to leverage the investment that they've made in technology. And why is that? Well, we believe that we are living in what you could call a perfect storm within the financial services industry. When you think about what's going on from a geopolitical perspective, and you think that we're now a little bit over a year from the Brexit vote, and we still have the air of uncertainty that's associated with that. That was quickly followed by the elections that took place here in the US, which still has a bit of uncertainty around, in particular, what will happen from a regulatory standpoint. That was followed by the election that took place in France, shortly followed by the election that took place in Germany. That was followed most recently by the vote for independence in Kurdistan. And then, of course, we all woke up over this weekend with the news that Catalan has also voted for independence. I would also, because I lived for the last 5.5 years in Asia, draw your attention to the fact that the 19th Congress of the Communist Party will be meeting in Beijing in about 2 weeks. That's really important to pay attention to because it's at that party Congress when the party will decide its leadership, but most importantly, it will decide what its economic policy will be over the next 5 years. And clearly that will have a significant impact on the global domestic market. So with all of this as a background, just in the geopolitical arena, we still have what's occurring just from an overall innovative startup capability. There is no shortage of companies that are innovating and providing both a challenge as well as opportunity to what's going on within our business. We actually live in an environment where the regulatory environment is tightening. Everyone here is aware of what's going to be happening with MiFID in January, and we're all doing the work that's required around that. That's going to be shortly followed by GDPR, which is coming up next year, shortly followed by what's happening with FRTB. And just as a data point, if you look at the amount of regulatory change, whether it's new regulations or amendments to existing regulations, there is a change happening about every 12 minutes. And then if you pull the lens back and you look at what's happening from technology from a macro perspective, which will be talked about later today, it's really interesting to be paying attention to what's going on in the cloud space, what's happening with artificial intelligence, and what's happening with blockchain as well. So there is no shortage of challenges as well as opportunities going on within our businesses. And so we believe within Thomson Reuters that really what's going to be absolutely core and fundamental is for us as a community, whether that be us through our partners or us with our customers that are represented here, to be able to collaborate and to be able to co-innovate. And so our partnership that we announced in June with Symphony is a demonstration of exactly that. Now, we also think that what will be core and fundamental to navigating that environment is having the ability to leverage an open platform, such as Thomson Reuters Icon, and to be able to integrate as well as discover, as well as transact, as well as communicate in a very secure and efficient environment. That's what Thomson Reuters Icon platform does. We believe that the platform itself provides a compelling case from an economic benefits standpoint, and we are committed to delivering the power of that economic benefit to this community that's represented here. And I can't think of any better illustration of that than the partnership that we've announced with Symphony. And it's really great for me on a personal level to be working with David Gurlé as well. So really appreciate that. Let me get then to the punchline. What we are doing here today is I will be showing very shortly a video which will illustrate the capabilities that I was talking about that are the result of our partnership. Before I go to the video, two things. One, I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact we have a booth outside where you can actually see a live demonstration of about what I'm going to show you. So I would encourage all of you to take advantage of that. Secondly, what the video will do is really show you in about 1.5 minutes 2 use cases. The first use case that you will see will be an example of an oil trader wanting to communicate with the broker about what's happening as a result of the hurricane that just recently came through, Hurricane Irma, and what impact that would have on a particular vessel and all the implications that will follow on from that. The second use case that you will see is an actual analyst who has been doing his technical analysis and looking at a certain chart. And he wants to get a view from the trader about where the implications of that movement within that chart and whether or not there should be any thought given to a hedge position. So that's what the video will show. Let me ask if we can bring that up, and I'll provide some high-level commentary to that as we go along. So this is the first scenario that I talked about. Here you're looking at an interactive map of the hurricane that was coming. You can share that map to your Symphony contact via the Symphony connection. That interactive map, once it's received by the recipient, can be made interactive and live and launched within Icon if the Icon is also resident. That will allow the broker to provide some commentary about the particular vessel and give the details that then can be sent back to the oil trader. And the oil trader then can say, hey, look, this is great. Let's start tracking MARE so we can monitor it. And if we need to take some sort of hedge position based on the weather, we can be able to do that. The second scenario that I mentioned is an equity analyst. As I said, wanting and looking at his technical charts, wants to get the view from a trader. So he grabs the actual chart. He wants to share that with the Symphony contact via Symphony. He can send that chart. If the individual also has, as I said, Icon resident, they can bring that chart live. They can do some analysis around the stochastics in terms of where that chart is breaking through. They can amend it with commentary. They can take that and then share it back via Symphony to the end users. So this is a very, very quick example of what I was talking about the power of the platform, the power of the partnership. As I said to you earlier, there will be the ability to look at this live today. I'm going to be letting everyone here know that on December 1st, we will go live with this application. And I guess I will leave you just one thought, which is this is just the beginning. So thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's attention and look forward to speaking with all of you throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Don't go. So this was sleek. This is like real ship, locations?
Absolutely.
Like GPS?
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's one of the interactive mapping capabilities that we have. So there's a lot of detail behind that.
That's pretty impressive. So these guys have fun, looking at where the ships are,
Absolutely.
playing the games that we used to play at school.
Yes, if you used to play the board game Risk, it's similar to that, right? Exactly.
I know now why trading is so fun. Kids at work. What are you the most excited about as you look ahead?
Well, listen, David, for me, that's easy. As I've said at the close, to me, this is just the beginning. I mean, we're just absolutely starting to really understand what the power of both the platform and the partnership and the combination of both platforms can bring to the entire community. So between us working with our partners, but most importantly, jointly working with the customer community that is represented out here, I don't think there's any limit to what we can do. So I'm quite excited about being back here next year and providing an update what we were able to accomplish.
I can't wait.
Okay. Thanks, David. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Tom, journey continues. So we are still on the theme of the platform. And now we're going to talk about 3 new product capabilities we are announcing, actually a scoop kind of thing. And so I'm going to bring on stage 2 of my dear colleagues from New York shortly. But the innovation never stops. And the reason we named our conference Innovate is because it shall not. And the world keeps advancing. And so as we receive feedback from the market, there has been something very surprising that happened last year for us. And, as a company manager, you set course, right? And like a ship, and then you put the fuel in, and the ship moves. And suddenly something happens in the middle of your journey, and you wonder, what are you going to do with that thing? And is it a new ship you have to create? Is it stop and reconsider? Or is it something that you should just ignore? That's exactly what happened to us in the context of what we call the customer engagement platforms. And a set of our customers, and actually from North America and Europe, came to us and they said, look, we love Symphony. We use Symphony in our corporate environment. It is good for our institutional relationships inside and outside. We love that. But we have corporate customers. We have retail customers in terms of high net worth to all the way to the retail customers. And we need a better way of engaging with those customers. Not anonymously, like a live chat on a website. We want to have a relationship. We actually have a relationship, but we cannot make it as good online as it is offline. We need to reestablish that trust. We need to reestablish that bridge online. We trust Symphony, and can you make Symphony part of that journey? Can Symphony become a vehicle for us to reach out to our corporate customers, to reach out to our private wealth customers, so that we have this interaction that we benefit from in our own life, both life, in the context of our customer engagements. So that's what we call the customer engagement portal. So when you are a startup and you have smart people and the boat is chugging along, what you do is you accelerate. You take on more. This isn't a tyranny of or, it is the benefit of and. Okay, you do this and that. And so we took this on and increased the capacity of the ship and put the engines full forward. And we came up with what we're going to show you today. So, and this is real. So this is certainly not something that is in the works, as we have already 2 customers heavily engaged on that. And again, this is just the beginning. So we're going to talk about 3 things. And I'll wrap it up because I don't want to steal the thunder of my team here. So I'm going to bring on stage, first of all, Sashi, and then Mike. So Sashi, in her capacity, runs America for us. But here she's going to take a different role as we're going to demonstrate to you what happens. And then Mike is also based in New York, and he is our evangelist for all of our platform capabilities. And they are certainly the best qualified to talk about how this experience come live. And I will come back to you shortly. So the floor is yours.
Thank you.
I just need to get my screen
So right now we're just going to get set up. Take 1 second to log into our two environments. But for the sake of this demo, we have 2 different actors in this. Sashi's role is, you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm playing the role of a private wealth advisor at Excelsior Financial Services.
And I'm a client of Excelsior, specifically Sashi's client.
So I just got out of my morning meeting, and I'm trying to organize myself for the day. So I have information that I'm trying to both organize for my customer and also for my internal collaboration purposes. So on Symphony, I have all the information I need to securely connect to my customer, as well as be able to provide them with information that they need. I also need to be able to receive alerts
so we are
in order to...
Is it not showing? Video problems there. This is the risk of doing things in life. You should admire our courage here.
That's okay. I know which cable it is.
Keep. Okay.
Yeah, I see that.
Perfect.
Okay.
I won't move.
So I need to ensure I can connect with my clients in real time and make sure that I can actually receive portfolio alerts and be able to provide my clients with market color. So on Symphony, I have all the functionality that I need to be able to do that securely. And I want to be able to connect also with my internal colleagues, but also with our customers. So I believe I just received a trade alert bot. So in this, I think we're having a connection issue here, but the trade alert would actually provide me with a structured object format of an alert from my customer's portfolio. So in this case, and you can envision for Mike, I need to do a portfolio rebalance for him. So I'm getting an alert that I can action that directly from my Symphony system. And we're able to do that, and I'm able to see that alert, confirm it, and then actually give it to my trader to action. So Symphony allows me to act on that in real time. Previously getting to the portfolio, what I needed to do is access that information from 3 different systems. So now I can do it in 1 click and be able to connect with my customer instantly. So what I'm going to do is, from here, I would actually queue up my conversation with Mike and actually ask him, does he have a few minutes to connect on this?
This is great. So as Sashi is sending that message, I'm receiving a notification on my phone. I show you that notification, but there's a whole host of breakfast ordering notifications on there right now, so we'll just stick to the screen here. But that notification is letting me know my private wealth portal has a message waiting for me, which is great. Because before, I would receive an email or a phone call, and you know, in your day-to-day, things can happen. You miss an email, phone call you can't take because you're in the meeting. At least I know in my portal there's something waiting for me when I go to log in to actually see my information and everything that pertains to my portfolio. So right now I'm going to log in and I'm going to see, okay, what did Sashi send to me? What is going on that needed my attention? So upon logging in, I see in the lower right-hand corner a chat from Sashi. That is letting me know that there's been a trade alert. They need to rebalance my portfolio, and that's great, because even now, I know that Sashi's available to talk to me. Before, when I got an email, I'll send an email back. I'm not sure if Sashi's really going to be able to get back to me in that moment, in that time. So this is great. I see what's going on. I know that something happened, and I can look at the metrics all in one spot without connecting the dots like I was doing previously. So I'm going to write back to Sashi and ask, how's everything going? And could you give me a little bit more color about what's going on with my portfolio and maybe the sector that was affected? Cool. So now I'm waiting. I see Sashi's there.
So what I'm actually going to be doing from here is I received this portfolio alert. I'm able to action it, see information, and send that information to my trader. From here, I can actually quickly go back to my conversation with Mike. I can confirm that he's received the alert. I can confirm with him that I've actioned it. And I can also share with him market color from some of the information that I had in my investment meeting this morning. So it's a nice opportunity because I could see his presence, I could see he's online, and I can instantly connect with him securely to do so. So I think the bottom line here is, as a wealth advisor, with 1 click I can connect with thousands of clients. From my collaboration tool, I can integrate and talk with my internal colleagues, exchange information securely with 1 click, and Mike always knows I'm there and he could reach me at any time. So those are really the major benefits that I see from a private wealth perspective.
And as a customer, on top of what I mentioned before, I think it's really big that I'm able to get attachments in a secure way, because through email before I wouldn't always open them and I wasn't always aware of what it contained. But I know for sure that coming through this channel, it's coming from a good source.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Of course.
We even managed to get Murphy in, the Murphy's Law, you know. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, Mike. So what we have seen here is, I think, a very interesting combination of 3 capabilities that we are introducing. We need the screen to be properly displayed, please. Number 1 is the customer engagement portal. So we are able now to take Symphony and inject Symphony into any third-party application with the restrictions or the full-fledged capabilities of Symphony. And that, today, seems a relatively simple thing to do, but you are all customers of financial institutions today as individuals. And you know how you interact with them today, which is nothing. So your interaction is limited. There is no engagement. There is no interaction. There is no opportunity for you to be served better because it happens on a completely asynchronous and inconvenient channel called email plus this portal. Okay? That is past now. With Symphony Customer Engagement Portal, we are able to bring this to 21st century. What you experience in your personal lives, you're going to be able to experience also in your financial life, whether you are an individual or a corporate treasurer, for example. The second capability that we have seen is the opportunity for Symphony to be tailored, to be kind of stitched and changed and put into this portal. So it is not the full-fledged Symphony that we have seen in the case of the demos that we've seen with FactSet and Thomson Reuters. It is actually a different form of Symphony. And that also speaks to our platform capability. We call this the embedded chat module. So the embedded chat module is basically opportunity for any third party to recreate their own Symphony, whether it is their own complete view of whatever they want to deliver, or it is just a portion of Symphony. And the last but not least is another illustration of the structured objects that we have just demonstrated the power of as this customer engagement happens. So that is the journey of our platform. And so we've talked about FactSet, we talked about open source, the FactSet, and obviously the Symphony and Thomson Reuters. Now let's see what our customers do. This isn't only about partners and us, it's also about what the market does with Symphony. So it's now my pleasure to bring Matt and Sean on stage. And they're going to introduce themselves shortly. But we've been working very closely with Tiro as well as RBC over the course of last year and a half. And they have lots of interesting problems that they want to solve. And I'm not going to steal their thunder. But this work that we are going to see today and how everything comes together is actually their work. It's actually their need that we are addressing through the platform capabilities that we have built for the market. Build once and serve many. That's really what it is. So we are, again, being extremely brave here. So we are going to do this live because this is a real product. This is not just a demoware. Okay? And we'll see how this comes together. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Yeah, really well. I'm Matt Howe. I work for Tiro out of London, and I run our derivative and multi-asset trading team. So I'm sitting on the trading desk dealing with these kind of challenges all day long.
All day?
Yeah.
Is your life hard?
Yes, yes. Yeah, there's. I think when we think about where Symphony comes into play, it's living in that content flow and helping us manage that efficiency.
Okay, so we're going to walk through that.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Josh Carroll. I'm Global Head of Market Data for RBC. I'm based here in New York.
Thank you, Josh.
And yeah, living and breathing Symphonies.
You're living a Symphony? Yeah. Heavy user of Symphony?
Massive user.
Probably
going off in my pocket right now. So.
Excellent. How is the demo coming up? One more screen to come. So why don't you set the stage, Matt, as we bring the other screen on.
So if we can think about my current environment and my current role and what it's like. So the trader's job on the buy side, apart from executing in the market, is around information discovery. And we live in a world where our current environment have hundreds of chat rooms. For years, my sort of competitive advantage against other traders has been the fact that I can speed read, that I can get through all of this information quicker and faster than other people. As things get more complicated, as roles change, as the market moves towards a more multi-asset model, you're looking at more and more chat rooms coming our way, even more content coming our way. And so it becomes a sort of a necessity to start looking at technology as an enabler and a solution there. The challenge is that there's lots of valuable content that's being sent to us, and often, our partners on the sell side are taking time and effort to curate that content to us, and we're missing things. Signals are getting lost, information's getting lost in that workflow.
Gurlé?
Yeah, on the sell side, obviously, we're producing a lot of content, and as Matt says, we don't necessarily want to reduce the amount of content, we want to send targeted content to our clients. So what we're going to actually show today is the ability to do that as a live demo.
So if we look at my environment on Symphony right now, We have a number of rooms where we've got sell-side firms sending us tagged information, and they sit alongside internal rooms where we're also tagging information internally. As the number of rooms grows, we're going to be looking to abstract ourselves from the individual chat rooms and start using signals to help us with the alerts. And there's some great examples that we've used and we're already using internally as we come up towards earnings season. Earnings is a great start. Hashtag earnings, and we can move quickly to a summary of everything that's come out of that in that morning. Moving on from there, this is where the Symphony idea engine comes into play. With our current model, sales traders and traders can feel abstracted from our process. They can feel like they're just dropping content into a black hole. With the introduction of MiFID II next year, it's going to be important to acknowledge the value of content around execution. And so this is where we're looking to use tools to build on the relationship between the trader and the sales trader, working together. So the tool allows us really to select the topics that we might be interested in. And then select who we want to receive that content from. So this is calling out, what are we interested in today? What can you do when you think about your curation of your content to us? What can you do to help us do our job? And then we can send that out to our sell-side partners.
So now I've obviously been notified by Matt of what he's interested in here about this week. Key one there being technology, which is what we're going to show in this demo right now. And obviously the demo we're showing is for an external collaboration, but we could also be using the same for an internal between different departments, where certain departments want to share information with each other. So Matt's told me that he's interested in all of these hashtags this week. I'm now going to take some content that I've curated. So Karai, if you just want to copy that over. And then using this new feature of auto tagging, which is actually powered by Celerity, I can now add tags to this content without actually having to edit what I've written. So there we can see that I've now tagged this with business, internet, technology, etc. So if I send this message back to Matt now, Matt should now get a signal
And here we're back on my desktop, and we've got Josh's message to me integrated with all of that content that I'm collecting internally around that signal. And to Josh's point earlier, you know, this doesn't just apply to that interaction between the trader and the sales trader. This could apply to the interaction between portfolio managers and their team. You know, they could be out on the road letting us know what they care about right now, and we can make sure that we're tailoring that communication to what they want.
It's fascinating. I mean, this completely came from you guys as you were trying to find a way of funneling through this volume of information and categorizing it. And on top of that, I think it's fair to say that there has been a standardization effort to try to create, like we have done in the financial objects group, a set of tags that will define the different information streams that comes. And was this a kind of also an important element for you?
I think when we talk to our sell-side partners, one of the first things that came up in any conversation around Symphony was, what tags do you want us to use? How do you want us to communicate? And there's an opportunity there to create standards before they splinter, and before you have each individual firm deciding what their standards are around. So there's an opportunity to communicate standards there, and I think that's going to be really powerful as we move that forward.
Yeah, creating a dictionary of what you're trying to share between each other, and having things like Celerity power that for auto tagging is really powerful. So,
what is your most favorite feature of Symphony?
So for me, it's taking away the need for my email management. I get thousands of emails a day, literally, which I have to then email manage, delete, etc. mine. With Symphony, I'm not having to do that anymore. I've got lots of rooms that I'm in, and I can choose to read the content as and when I need, and don't need to delete anything. So saving me an awful lot of time on a daily basis.
And you, Matt?
And I think outside the email case, which is obviously a massive part of our lives, I think the workflow efficiencies that come with these kind of tools and the ability to make sure that our traders are really working to their highest and best use, rather than combing through multiple chats and using their speed reading capabilities.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew, that worked. You have no idea my blood pressure going up. Well, you know, trying to put those things live is quite a feast. And I'm super happy. Thank you, team. And thank you, Koray. Thank you, Jeff. And everybody else who worked on this. I think this is what I absolutely love about my job, is because it is not me coming up with ideas or the team coming up with ideas, but it's the market saying, you know what, we got it, we'll take it from here onwards. And I have no idea what the next thing is going to be. You know, working with Celerity and doing this auto-tagging thing, actually, it was so easy because of the open platform and the existing relationship we have with the team. And you can see many more of those integrations kind of cooking up as you're going to go to the pods that we have and to the sessions that you will see in the afternoon. And I really encourage you to go and take a look at those. So we are coming towards the end. And we're going to talk about the future. And then we'll see what happens on the regulatory front with Commissioner Brian, who I can't wait to hear what he's going to say us. So before I bring William on stage, think of us in the Geneva Motor Show, International Motor Show, just for a minute. And we are not building a software, but we are building a car. And as you know, every year, all these car manufacturers kind of display their dreams. They call them the prototype cars or dream cars, and they inspire kind of what the future generation of cars is going to be. They inspire emotional response from us, and that's really the phase that we are in right now. We've also dreamed, and we want to share with you a joint dream that we had with the Dow Jones Innovation team, Ed Russell and his organization, and obviously under the leadership of William. So we came up with this concept of the Symphony Media Platform out of pretty much the discussion from many of our customers who claimed, and for rightly so, that the media is silent. The content is silent. I said, what do you mean by silent? Well, the content I consume is my content. Certainly, it speaks to me. But what about the content that Sashi or Jeff or somebody else is consuming? It does not speak to me today. I do not have the opportunity nor the knowledge or any sort of a clue of what's going on in my organization. Surprisingly, I have it on Twitter. I have it on Facebook. I even have it on LinkedIn. But what about this thing that makes my organization pulse happen? Where is that information today? Well, where it is your email inbox. It is in the chat room that you are part of. It is in your one-on-one conversations that you are in. But the rest, it's complete silence. It is like you are deaf. And for me, that represents an incredible opportunity, because if we can bring this collective intelligence of what's going on from a content perspective in your organization and make you aware of it, then we can unleash a new era of productivity, a new era of contextual intelligence, which we call the social collaboration platform. So with that, William, could you please join me on stage? So William, if you do not know, happens to be the CEO of Dow Jones. And William and I have had a chance to work together for some time now.
That's right.
Across a range of initiatives. Dow Jones has also built an application on Symphony. And can I say that it is the most popular application that we have in terms of number of views, number of clicks?
You can say that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, actually. I mean, when I look at the statistics of who's using which applications, that's the one that always comes on top. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you're here.
Well, David, thank you. We and the team, Dow Jones and Wall Street Journal team, are very, very excited to be here, David. It's an amazing thing that you've created, and we were there right at the beginning of this journey, and we're very proud to be on it with you. We do believe this is just the beginning, David. So congratulations on what you've done so far. I have the great privilege of being the CEO of Dow Jones, but also the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, which you will know as the world's greatest newspaper. I know you'll all have bought a copy already this morning, but there was an additional one on your seats. Do take that home with you. Now, you've been around for 3 years with us, so we've been around for 130 years at Dow Jones. And during that time, we have become the world's leading deliverer of market-moving journalism, delivered in ways that you actually can use and enjoy. Always innovating. And as many of you, no, it's a joke, as some of you may recall, back in the day, many years ago, we used to print as a newsletter and have it hand-delivered in the streets around here by runners for people wanting to know the latest news from a trusted source.
Is this when you start working for Dow Jones?
This is right. That's right. Yeah. And Tom. Yeah. Tom started as a runner. Yeah, that's it, yeah.
You guys are fit. Now I know why.
But then we innovated again, and then we launched the first dedicated business newswire, rapid fire news again that you can bet the farm on. And now, today, we are a whirling, twirling digital and print multi-platform publisher, giving you the news in a way that you want it, whether it's on your phone, desktop, watch, newspaper. And I'm delighted to be able to tell you that we have nearly 3 million members, as we say, at Dow Jones, and that includes a record number, historic number of Wall Street Journal members, which is a great achievement by the team. And through all this, we have been obsessed with the quality of our journalism, whether it's the merger and acquisition scoops that we bring you, whether it's the insights or our brilliant commentary. That is how we earn our money, and it's never, in our mind, in these difficult days, been more important where you get the news from. And that is something that we obsess about. And that means it's all about trust and making sure that we're giving you the news in a way that you actually want it, and you can share it and you can act on it. And that's why we have been working away with David and the team on what we see as a next generation product, which I think we're going to show you in a minute. What we got when we talked with you about what you want. You are time poor, but you are content hungry. In fact, you're starving. You want more content, but you want to digest it in a much more palatable way and then use it and act on it. And that's what the team led by Ed Roussel has been working away at, and we're so excited to show you here this morning.
Well, we're going to do this together, and if it doesn't work, who will blame? Murphy? Okay, so I'm very excited about this because this is another of these aha moments that got triggered from our customer base. And this is one more time we take this, the ship forward even faster and add one more end to the product roadmap that we are heavily already engaged on. So first of all, this is a concept, right? We haven't productized this. So unlike the other stuff that we've seen, this is, actually we want your feedback on this. Come and talk to us and tell us, are we heading in the right direction or not? And this is where innovation happens together. And we have a lot to learn. It's going to be a journey, but we are very excited about some of the core principles that we are going to show you today. So how you can create a Symphony media platform without being a media source? That's an extremely important question to begin with. How do you make yourself source agnostic? So in other words, this isn't a Symphony content. This is a content. This is not just a content from Dow Jones, but this is a content from any source that needs to come in. How do you make sure that you remove noise and bring quality and signals into the core? And how do we remove the silence and make it actually a symphony? Now, the pun intended here. Okay, and so that was a good one. Huh?
That's good.
I just came up with it.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah,
very good.
it wasn't scripted at all.
This is just the beginning.
Just the beginning. Yeah. And so here we are going to look at some of the key tenets. This is my symphony, and you can see we made a little bit of changes to my symphony. So we started to add this latest thing. And here, the content source that we are receiving is from our dear friends of Dow Jones. It's real time, completely. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything cool that I could just put my head around. I saw sometime that Yahoo had another 3 billion kind of accounts exposed. So if you think about security being sorted out, just continue to read the news from Wall Street Journal. It is not. We still have issues. So here I have the latest in a very nice look and feel. On the right side, I have two interesting rows. One is the popular. And so the popular area here isn't the popular area that happens in the universe of Dow Jones, but it is happening in the universe of my company. So I know who in my company is reading what, and we have the trending going on here. And so I have, therefore, intelligence that I did not have before. If somebody is in Tokyo reading something interesting, and I'm covering the same sort of instruments that this person has, maybe I should know about that. Then the next one is the shared. And the shared is about people who are sharing content with me because they think that it is important to my attention. And I don't know how William does it, but he has been able to share things in real time with me. Well done. But the most important feature that I like the most is if you go to my present state, Jeff, and hover over this, and we've added something new, something very unique. It's called sharing the status with Symphony Management. So I created this group called the Symphony Management Team. And by the way, if you belong to this group, you are in trouble. Just make sure that you know. And it is not a privilege. It is actually a curse. What it means is that I'm going to flood you with information. No, I want actually the team to know is what ticks for me. And when I'm going to consume information, when I'm going to read research, when I'm going to pay attention to some content, I actually want them to know implicitly as opposed to explicitly, which is where I take an action to share what is going on. We don't do this today. You know, there is no notion of what I will call implicit sharing, obviously within the confines of entitlements and the confines of information barriers, but it is something that we really want to innovate with. So let's continue on our journey. And then we've added sources. And so we're going to talk about research, we're going to talk about media, and we're going to talk about voices and stories. But let me start with research before I jump into media and come back to William. And so one of the great partners who contributed to this initiative is HSBC. And HSBC is a global research powerhouse. And they produce research like Goldman Sachs does, like Morgan Stanley does, like Bammel does, and many, many others. And today, they and everybody else is trying to figure out how best to produce this content, how best to distribute this content, but most especially what happens with this content. You know, when the content of research comes to the buy side, where does it go? What doesn't happen? Who reads what? What is the real thing that comes from a data mining perspective? And you have on the sell side things that we don't want to know what we are reading. And so it becomes an interesting give and take debate. So we wanted to kind of solve this problem by making this thing explicit as opposed to implicit. So let's walk on this journey a little bit. And you can see here that Fintech is a friend or foe. I'm going to claim it's a friend. And but this has been tagged. Actually, this has been tagged by the machine that HSBC has built together. And if I click on the AI and machine learning tag, but actually it gives me access to this signal. So let's open, Jeff, my signals context, and let's go to AI and machine learning, and which is pretty much the same thing. So we have linked the notifications that come from these different media sources. In this case, just the article from HSBC into my signals, which aggregates all of the content that is relevant to the signal, because I'm super interested in that. And what I can do here, I can go and share this with some people. So if we go onto the sharing capability, and let's share this actually management team just for the sake of annoying them even more. And the management team, let me know what you think. And then I can also post this into my wall, and the people can see and react to it in a social collaborative environment. So now coming back to media, and let's come back to media and close everything else. Excellent. Let's open Wall Street Journal. And so another big requirement that we have from our customers is, look, we need different media sources. And Wall Street Journal is beautiful, it's fantastic, we love it, we trust it. But what about many others?
It's only because they've obviously exhausted all of the Wall Street Journal content.
Absolutely.
They then are hungry for more.
Hungry for more.
Yes.
But you have more.
We do, yes.
Tell me more about that.
We have 32,000 professional sources, David, going back to 1944, brilliantly tagged. And you'll be delighted to know that the earliest paper we have is Le Monde from France. So.
Le Monde. This is the Le Monde. And that's wonderful, because now, through this partnership with Dow Jones, and obviously through more partnerships that we are going to bring on board, you're going to have the opportunity to have the world of information in front of you. And this can now be complemented by more. And there's two other things that I want to bring on as we close the Wall Street Journal, which actually is the real Wall Street Journal here. And this is the real content using the open APIs that we are connecting to the Dow Jones team, is voices. So I can actually decide to follow some key people, could be journalists, could be analysts, could be CEOs, could be anybody who actually have an opinion that I really care about. And in the same way as I take this opinion, I can make it part of my social intelligence. And then if you go to stories, and I can actually look at some of the stories that are coming up. And as it happens, just by coincidence, we have a story about Symphony Innovate. What happens there? Let's click on this. Oh my God, we are announcing a few things. And yes, so you can also bring in your own content to this universe. And so suddenly you have proprietary content, street content, information content, not in a silent way, but in a socially intelligent and contextual way. That's what we believe future should be. And with that, we think that we can unleash way more productivity, better decision making moving forward. So Symphony Media is a concept. We intend to take it to market sometime early next year. We are looking forward to your feedback. So as we improve and iterate over this concept, it is going to be a part of a core package of Symphony, so everybody is going to have access to it, and you can plug in whatever you want. And we'll obviously bring the Dow Jones and the Factiva as well, content as part of that, and many others. And so with that, William, thank you very much for joining us on stage.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I'm almost done. My blood pressure is going down. This is our second year, and obviously we learned a lot from the last year, and we will learn a lot from this year. This happens because you are part of this journey with us, and this is some of the pictures of our customers, and I can recognize some people from SocGen and some people from other companies, but also my delightful team, and I want to really thank them for this. So I invite you to go after the morning session outside and meet and mingle and learn. And now I'm going to hand the stage over to you, Diane.
I can't let you go just yet, but thank you very much. And please join me in thanking David, first of all, because I think that's fascinating. I would be remiss if I didn't put on my journalist hat and just ask. I hear Symphony in the context of Slack and Skype and Bloomberg. I want to get a sense of the ambition? Like, step back a second and tell us 2, 3, 5 years, where is Symphony going to be? What do you want to define as your space?
I think the space that I'm thinking about is how do we improve the way we work. I think that the way we work today is materialized through a set of siloed digital information systems that we work through, and we act as the gateway of this. We are the broker or the bridge across these systems. And I think that the power, the computing power, that is the underlying capacity to process information is far better than what those applications are able to deliver today. And in order to unleash this computing power and make work more fun, more engaging, and faster and better, we need to build a new fabric. We need to build something that connects those information systems so that we can reduce the digital distance, remove the inconveniences, and bring this social operating system so that work becomes faster and better and also more pleasant. And we all get frustrated by the very tools that we use every day. And if we can come across as a company that facilitates the bringing the pleasure back, and then you think that, oh, this is wonderful to work this way, then I think we've been successful.
Are you beyond Wall Street?
We are starting to. We've received so many interests from other sectors, insurance and legal, government, healthcare, defense, and so financial services is connected obviously to many different industries. It's kind of a hub of a huge wheel. And for us, the next frontier is just in few months away,
Great.
And we'll be surprising you with those.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing more. And so as David exits the stage,
I exit the stage this way. Thank you.
I'm going to invite up Brian Quintenz. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So Brian is the, I believe, newest commissioner of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and I believe he may well be the first and only to have actually traded a futures contract. He will tell us if that's the case. I do know that he was nominated 3 times by 2 presidents, and so long-awaited arrival here. And this is your first official remarks, so we very much look forward to hearing from him. He's been a big champion of FinTech. I know that in your capacity as, I believe, the lead sponsor for the Technology Advisory Committee, that's a big part of your role. So please join me in welcoming Commissioner Quintenz.
Thank you, Diane, for that very kind introduction, for making me sound more interesting than I am. Thank you all for your generous welcome. And thank you, Symphony and David, for such an amazing conference. This is only your second conference, and it's incredible to see how much interest there is that you've been able to generate over just a short period of time. But in terms of your experience hosting conferences versus mine of giving speeches, you have me beat, so hopefully this isn't the point where everything goes off the rails. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm going to use this opportunity to speak about FinTech and the government's and regulators' relationship to FinTech. Before I begin, I just have to quickly say that the views contained in my speech are my own and do not represent the views of the Commission. Somewhere an ethics attorney is smiling. I'd also like to thank the other presenters for giving me an inferiority complex for using prepared remarks, but such is the way of Washington nowadays. Maybe I should be apologizing for using paper at a FinTech conference, but that. It's amazing how quickly we as a people assimilate to technology and innovation. It wasn't that long ago that we survived without posting and without FaceTiming and without swiping. And technological innovation has the power to give us more choices, more information, more speed, or more time, often simultaneously. Some important technological change occurs gradually. At other times, technological change drives significant spikes in productivity, dramatically altering how we transact and engage in economic activity. Financial markets and services may actually now be experiencing such a shift, finally benefiting from the advancements made possible by the internet and the exponential growth in computing power. New types of companies are expanding into financial services as we speak, motivated by a confidence in their own proprietary technological advancements. For instance, Tesla and its confidence in its car's self-driving capabilities and its safety features has actually offered lifetime auto insurance to some of its car buyers over in Asia and included that in its sticker price. Amazon is leveraging its visibility into micro sales growth rates to strategically extend credit to fast-growing companies. Can you imagine if Amazon actually got more access and got access to low-cost deposits through a banking charter and combined low-cost deposits with its visibility into sales and real-time customer satisfaction? I mean, that could transform some of the lending landscape that we have right now. Really important to think about. It's not necessarily in our purview, but it's interesting to think about. A recent World Economic Forum report noted that at least one systemically important bank has turned to artificial intelligence to assist its stress testing, streamlining that task from 9 months to 3, and reducing the number of employees from hundreds to using less than 100 specialists. So whether we're looking at the power of data analytics and machine learning or algorithmic trading, the movement of data to the cloud, DLT, we see a world that is moving faster at a lower cost, more transparently, with more efficiency. These dynamics can provide a tremendous benefit to our society to foster broad and deeper markets and permit improved risk sharing that drives increased world economic activity. But new technologies innovation can also be accompanied by new risks, not necessarily more risks, but new risks. While speed in trading can have significant benefits, in some cases, it could also trigger events that undermine market stability. So the increased movement of and importance of data demands heightened careful attention to data integrity and cybersecurity. Emerging technologies drive the need for a new perspective on how to foster the good, deter and prevent the bad, and ensure a level playing field for all market participants. So how do we best accomplish that mission? I would suggest there are two key components. The first is having regulatory leadership which prioritizes a consistent and engaging dialogue with the fintech community. And secondly, fully utilizing existing avenues and creating new structures to empower those conversations. On that first element, leadership, CFTC Chairman Chris Giancarlo has consistently advocated for modernizing our agency's approach to technology by creating a 21st century regulator and for presenting a coherent message to the fintech community that beneficial innovation will be encouraged and is viewed as vital to the health and vibrancy of our markets. On the second element, Chairman Giancarlo has created a new initiative called Lab CFTC, which I'd like to talk about at length, as a pathway through which we can develop and foster that dialogue. Lab CFTC serves as the Commission's outreach effort to understand and facilitate market-enhancing fintech innovation, while also promoting forward-looking policy for the benefit of our markets and the American public. Lab CFTC was launched in May of this year and is led by Dan Gorfine, our Chief Innovation Officer. Lab CFTC is designed to make the CFTC more accessible to fintech innovators and serves as a platform to inform the Commission's understanding of emerging technologies and how they square with current rules. Additionally, Lab CFTC is an important source for the Commission and the CFTC staff on market-enhancing innovation that may influence policy development. Lab CFTC will enable the CFTC to be proactive as fintech applications continue to develop and to identify related regulatory opportunities, challenges, and risks. The Lab CFTC initiative will accomplish this mission through three primary work streams: thoughtful engagement with innovators, understanding and considering how new technologies can help make the Commission itself more efficient and effective, and three, the development of Lab CFTC as a vehicle for collaboration with external organizations, including domestic and international regulators. The first prong of that effort is called GuidePoint, and it serves as the point of contact for fintech innovators to engage with the CFTC, to learn about the CFTC's regulatory framework, and obtain feedback and information on the implementation of fintech innovations. The Lab CFTC team hosts pre-announced office hours in our Manhattan offices at 140 Broadway, the most recent of which occurred 2 weeks ago. We've already planned and announced additional office hours in Chicago for Friday, October 20th. I think it's Friday, October 20th. Over the next few months, we're going to go out to Silicon Valley and we're going to visit other tech centers around the United States. If you're interested in meeting with us, if you know of people that are interested in meeting with us, email labcftc@cftc.gov. We'd love to meet with you. The more oversubscribed we are, the more we'll do it. We think it's a very, very important way to engage with the fintech community. So we're encouraging all innovators to engage with us, whether they be garage startups, whether they be regulated financial institutions, or whether they be purely technology companies. Engagement isn't intended to establish a mode of pre-approval for new ideas, but rather to permit a two-way dialogue around how certain innovations can improve our markets, help allocate capital more efficiently, or just generally provide benefits to the American public. As you may know, in a recent survey of market participants, the quote-unquote market support services category of fintech solutions was the second largest category by number of firms, behind only the payments, clearing, and settlement services category. And I think this brings up a really good opportunity for those of us interested in furthering a fintech and regulator dialogue. While a lot of the other regulatory jurisdictions are promoting their fintech sandboxes, most seem to only be engaging those firms that are on a path towards eventual registration. Sure, providing less burdensome regulatory on-ramps is important, and it's certainly one aspect of the Lab CFTC's mission. But engaging with third-party service providers who might always exist outside of our regulatory framework may give those innovators ideas how to better shape or transform their products to meet their client needs and satisfy their clients' regulatory burdens. And it also allows us as a regulator an opportunity to better understand where our markets are heading and explore how we can begin to craft forward-looking policy frameworks that account for market-enhancing change. The second prong of Lab CFTC is called CFTC 2.0. This is an internally focused idea. It's an extension of GuidePoint, but it focuses on our understanding and testing and adoption of new technologies that can make the CFTC a more effective and efficient regulator. The goal here is to fully wrap our heads around new technology, test them, and appreciate their potential. But interestingly, there's actually a legal barrier for us as a federal agency that has prevented us from effectively demoing technology and having the same authorities and flexibilities as some of our counterparts around the globe to work with proof of concept projects with innovators. Ethics rules prohibit the agency from accepting anything of value without providing appropriate compensation for it. But yet, if we were to try to provide compensation for it, it triggers a very arduous and time-consuming procurement process that makes sandbox demos burdensome and very limiting. Fortunately, there's some congressional leadership on this issue. The House Innovation Caucus and Congressman Patrick McHenry from North Carolina has been a leader on the government's interaction with fintech, and I look forward to working with him and his staff and all the members of the House Innovation Caucus to help correct this specific issue as he or the caucus may seek to introduce legislation. But until legislative fix occurs, we remain committed to using the tools that we have at our disposal, including prize competitions or hackathons to foster and incorporate technologies that can help us keep pace with digital markets. Finally and lastly, the third prong of Lab CFTC is to act as a coordination hub with other U.S. and international regulatory authorities. At the international level, we believe there's an opportunity to formalize our collaboration through agreements that facilitate high-level information sharing, especially on emerging RegTech trends. If you think about incentives that we have, we have an incentive to compete with other international jurisdictions over fintech innovators themselves, but we should also all have an incentive to collaborate and share when it comes to actual RegTech ideas and solutions. Global financial stability is enhanced when regulators are equipped with leading-edge technology, and we can all benefit by sharing insights and best practices. In addition to that new avenue of Lab CFTC, the Commission can further engage with fintech community and enhance our innovator-focused dialogue through an existing avenue, which is the Commission's Technology Advisory Committee, or the TAC. I'm very pleased to have been named a sponsor of the TAC, which is composed of outside professionals and structured to provide the CFTC with formal guidance on existing or emerging technologies and associated potential regulatory issues. One such issue is the modern trading environment. And if you think about regulating an autonomous algorithmic market from many perspectives, one of which is an enforcement perspective, which is a primary function of the CFTC. The idea of intent, or mens rea in legal Latin terminology, is a key component of investment fraud or market manipulation. But intent itself is a very challenging concept when dealing with automated algorithmic trading. How do we think about intent when we look at computer code? As market participants further progress into AI and machine learning, does the legal concept of intent or our idea of intent need to change? What about the compliance issue of supervision? How can we provide clarity around that for market participants? How does a firm prove that it has conducted a diligent review over AI trading strategies? These are questions the agency has already been tasked with answering, about which we need to continue to think and on which we would hope to engage you. The discussion of algorithmic trading actually leads me to address what, in my opinion, is one of the most serious missed opportunities of the agency's prior pending rulemakings, which is regulation automated trading, or Reg AT. In my opinion, the agency's process on this rule development was so confused. The regulation itself is titled Regulation Automated Trading, but the entities it would require to register were classified as algorithmic trading persons, and those aren't interchangeable terms. Not all algorithmic trading strategies have completely automated functionality. And this is more than semantics. It demonstrates, in my opinion, a top-level disregard for the enormity of the trading method spectrum, and therefore a disregard for the proper assessment of market risk posed throughout that broad spectrum. Further evidence of that disregard actually permeates the original proposal. In its originally conceived form, an algorithmic trading person, or an AT person, was defined so broadly that anyone using something as simple as a trailing stop or anything with a similar limited amount of functionality would have been captured, would have been forced to register with the Commission, and would have been subject to all of the same rules and requirements as the most sophisticated high-frequency trading firms. That's poorly crafted and flawed public policy. While the agency's lame duck re-proposal of Reg AT in December of last year attempted to address the breadth of the AT person definition by including a trading frequency requirement, at its heart, it was still a registration scheme. I don't believe that the right answer is to regulate and dictate all algorithmic trading activity. To me, the right answer is to understand and address automated trading risk. The agency needs, I think, to reset its posture on this issue. We need to have a serious discussion about the finite circumstances under which automated algorithmic activity can create large-scale market disruptions. And only then should we examine what, if any, additional regulatory solutions are necessary to address those specific concrete instances. I look forward to addressing this issue within the Technology Advisory Committee also. Lastly, let me use this opportunity to say that the prior administration's massively overreaching and highly concerning source code repository proposal is DEAD. For my friends in Washington, that spells dead. Second topic for the TAC, and one that probably none of you have heard of, is called Bitcoin and DLT. Before I address the primary regulatory issues, I'd like to just provide some personal thoughts on the press around Bitcoin and other virtual currencies, because I think it's misguided. I think we can all debate the value of Bitcoin, whether or not it's overvalued, undervalued, or a fraud, but that price-based conversation, to me, misses Bitcoin's broader technological and innovation achievements entirely. One of the most fascinating aspects of Bitcoin isn't that it's a virtual currency, it's that it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem where all of the discrepant parts interact and are necessary to nurture and support a created, digitized, sovereignless virtual currency. The encrypted ledger, the distributed nature of the verification process, the incentive of mining to conduct that verification all work in harmony to provide a record of ownership and a transfer for something that exists only in the ether. Which leads me to note that if you remove DLT from that ecosystem and you permission it and you take away the verification incentives, what's left isn't really DLT, and it's not quite as revolutionary. That's not to say that thinking about ledgers in a more distributed, even if permissioned way isn't innovative, but it's important for us as regulators to be aware of the diversity of these potential ledger ecosystems, from the narrow and the mostly private to the very broad and incentivized, so we can appropriately estimate risk and regulation. Speaking of regulation and Bitcoin, the CFTC, through successive enforcement cases before I arrived, determined that Bitcoin is a commodity and that trading in Bitcoin represents trading in a commodity interest. So as a result, if a platform sells Bitcoins to retail persons and finances those transactions, it would be required to register with the CFTC as a Futures Commission merchant. However, an important exception to that registration requirement is if quote-unquote actual delivery has occurred, and to be specific, has occurred within 28 days. So let me say that again. If a platform offers a transaction in Bitcoins which is margin leveraged or financed, it needs to deliver that Bitcoin to the buyer within 28 days, or it has to register as an FCM. Obviously, actual delivery in this context becomes enormously important. So if you want to help me define what actual delivery of virtual currency is, that would be great. But it's something that we're working very hard on. And we need to come up with a concept, with a proposal. And once a proposal comes forward, I would hope to use the tax input and its feedback as we work to provide regulatory consistency with other commodities and regulatory certainty within which a more constructive trading environment can develop. A final topic for this morning, but certainly not the last in terms of what I hope will be the many topics that the tax specifically addresses, is cybersecurity. Cyberspace is the 21st century battlefield for those that want to harm our country and to threaten our way of life. As recent private and public sector attacks make very clear, no company or government entity should feel immune from this threat. While prevention is of the highest importance, these recent breaches have shown that we also need to focus on mitigation and recovery. We owe it to our registrants, who send us highly sensitive and proprietary information, to make a realistic assessment of our vulnerabilities and ensure that all data submitted is rationalized and completely necessary. At the end of the life cycle, we need to ask the questions: what are the proper standards for data disposal? Are we using them? I hope the TAC can help answer these questions, or maybe even validate our existing practices. From the mandatory and thorough cybersecurity training that I've received since joining the Commission, it's clear that one of our primary defenses against attack isn't technology, but it's our people. People themselves can also be one of our greatest vulnerabilities. So while it's tempting to fight technology, a technological threat with technology, we can't lose sight of the fact that sometimes cybersecurity threats are a people problem as much as a technology problem. While I believe our agency's employee cyber training is robust, I would like to work with the private sector through the TAC to ensure we are training our people according to the highest standards on the most recent threats and at the appropriate intervals. From a fintech perspective, many startups lack the physical infrastructure and are very cloud dependent. We should allow and encourage this while also exploring how the physical location density of backup facilities and the concentration of cloud-based data providers either raises or alleviates questions around vendor risk or cloud resiliency. Innovation is not going to wait for us. The world's changing. We as regulators must now change too. A 21st century economy demands a 21st century regulator. As my remarks today hopefully underscore, we believe we have the vision and the mindset and the plan in place to ensure the continued leadership of the American capital markets. Thank you again to Dave and Symphony for putting on a great conference. Thank you for your attention. To keep more abreast of what we're doing, follow the CFTC on Twitter, and I hope to see you or your friends at a Lab CFTC office hours event soon. Thanks so much.
Well done. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for a very newsworthy inaugural address, Commissioner Quintenz. So next we have Chris Pennington, Managing Director of Google Cloud. I believe we're going to have 2 seats up on here, or we can just have a little powwow on the stage. And but I think should we bring? I don't know if we have staff bring up chairs, or if I should demonstrate. Oh, we do. I was going to demonstrate my raw strength by bringing it up myself, but. And welcome, Chris. How are you? So Chris, as many of you may know, is I'm not going to use the word veteran. We're all sensitive about that. But from both Microsoft and Sun Microsystems days, I think you bring you brought a rich experience into Google, and I've been fascinated with just the evolution of Google Cloud. So as we're seated, I'm going to start by just asking you, give us a sense, give me some perspective more broadly on where this fits in the future of work and the commitment that Google has to the cloud, because you're not the first, as you know.
No, we're not the first.
And welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invite to speak to you all today. I'm conscious of the fact there seems to be a string of English people on stage so far this morning.
And I'm not even putting on my Scottish accent.
I know. So just to be clear, I'm actually from Brooklyn. I fake this to make me sound some more intelligent. I was 11 years at Sun Microsystems during the 90s, 10 years at Microsoft during the turn of the century, and now at Google for nearly 5 years. And so that's a fascinating sort of like trifecta of companies throughout the age. And it's interesting to note that in the 90s, working for Scott McNealy, he would run around and say, the network is the computer. And in fairness, we were, excitedly applauding him and whooping and cheering, as Scott McNealy had a tendency to work up a crowd very, very well. But in fairness, we didn't probably understand exactly where he was coming at. And really, we're at a point now where, from the mid-90s to now where we are, this is the real reality, is the network is the computer. And cloud computing is absolutely going to be at the forefront of every sort of like decision within an organization and from a startup point of view moving forward. And it's interesting that when I started at Google, there was some interesting comments about, should we look at the cloud? I never have that conversation anymore. This is, I think the decision point about should we be looking at the cloud is now well and truly in the past. And it's now a case of, how do we embrace the cloud? How do we take those first steps? And I think that that's exactly where Google is coming from in terms of it was a company that's now is 19 years old. It's a middle-aged IT company already. But it was born in the cloud. It's 100% in the cloud. It's been running its entire portfolio of products, from the enterprise products that I represent in Google Cloud to the YouTubes and the cute cat videos on the other end of the spectrum. But everything, our vision about the sort of like the workplace is it centers around the individual, not around the company. Mm-hmm. It centers around enabling people to be able to do their stuff better, whatever their stuff might be. And by making it ubiquitous about where you can get access to it and how you get access to it, whether it be device independence, certainly location independence. I mean, I think the days of 9 to 5 work are well and truly, behind us.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned, the question, should we be in the cloud? That's a question that I know in just the financial services industry in general has been. Now, I think that there has certainly been a very strong movement toward the cloud there, but what differentiates what's happening in your mind in financial services? Because security is a big concern, obviously. There's been a lot of the private cloud versus the public cloud.
Exactly.
So where does Google fit in that? And give me some sense as to what you're hearing from the marketplace.
I mean, it was very interesting listening to the commissioner, and that's, and a very pragmatic view on the reality that innovation waits for nobody, whether it be an industry or a regulator or anything along those lines. And so that was actually a fascinating part. And I think security is an absolute pivotal part of all of this. And there are two parts of security. There's the science, and then there's the art. There's the emotion around it. And so Google spends billions of dollars. We have hundreds of people whose only job it is to secure your data in every single different possible way you can think about it, including secure it from us. It's your data, it's your privacy. And so I think that we're moving very much beyond security, and we do spend an awful lot of time, and we have lots of people with PhDs that will spend a lot of time with your PhDs to explain how we lock down the data. But we're very much moving into an era where we're now talking about trust. And trust is an emotion as much as it is a science. And I think that you will see more and more from Google in terms of pushing the trust conversation forward, using the science of security and what we do and how we've sort of like morphed security over the years to go from a perimeter to very much, a layered security approach. But I think that's going to be the sort of like pivotal conversation that we'll have moving forward, is that emotion, the emotion of trust.
So let me just go on a base level and sort of put myself in the customer's shoes of I've suddenly decided, yes, I am in fact going to be doing more in the cloud. What differentiates you from the other options that are out there? Besides, I trust you, but I trust everybody else too. So I'm just a trusting person.
I get asked that question a lot. I spend a lot of time in presentations, and like most organizations, we have a slide deck, and we can take you down to a product level of differentiation of, ticks in the boxes. I actually used the word tick, and that didn't translate to American. Check marks.
Yeah, ticks are not always a good thing here.
Yeah, sorry about that. Check marks in various boxes. And I think but fundamentally, the differentiator for Google moving forward is the cloud is a journey, and you need to pick partners. So the other thing that I'd like to be really, really clear on is Google is very much behind an open cloud. It's very much behind raising the tide for everybody. This is not about trying to tie everybody to just Google Cloud Platform, although clearly my team's job is to get that decision. But we're very focused on the open cloud. But the innovation that we're driving, whether it be at the product level with the container technology around Kubernetes, or the machine learning around TensorFlow, or just the pure scale of the infrastructure that we have, both at the data center level and at a network level, which is a very, very important component of it, is attracting the world's greatest minds to Google. And that, I think, is going to be the fundamental difference over the next 5 to 10 years and differentiate Google, because people are sort of like looking, scientists are looking at what is available to them within Google, and they realize that they can move forward their arena in science at a much faster rate, leaving academia and moving into the Google. And I think that's going to differentiate us enormously moving forward.
It's interesting because even just the conversation around whether to be in the cloud or not, we're at a tipping point. I used that term earlier, but also in terms of the technology. You mentioned machine learning. Mm-hmm. When you think about the workplace and how quickly it's evolving at this point, what's the cost? And this is not an app, but can you not be in the cloud? Is it possible to just simply defer that for a couple of years? Because if I was a CIO, it would make me nervous on multiple levels.
I would genuinely be more nervous about somebody that decided to wait and just see. I think that we are very much a long way past actually that element of it. I think that my team spends all of its time.
But you can do hybrid solutions.
This is the thing. We're talking about open cloud. We're talking about hybrid cloud. But I just don't think there is a place anymore for zero cloud. I think that there has to be an intelligent evaluation of what areas of your infrastructure are going to be, cloud orientated, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to move your entire business into the cloud. Again, using containers, we're pushing technology into the open source that allows you to create products in containers in Kubernetes that can be run just as easily on-prem as they can in a hybrid cloud, as they can in public cloud, ours and others. Mm-hmm. So we want to provide products, services, thinking, innovation to enable you to run the business that you have, not to be tied to a technology only and then be locked in for a period of time.
So talk a little bit about partnerships, because we were, obviously David was talking about partnerships around the Symphony platform. In terms of the partners you're working with, are you working with partners differently than some of the other cloud service providers, or maybe the right conversation to have is around, what you're doing with partners and sort of what the aspirations are going forward?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I'm not gonna make a judgment call on how other people work with partners. I'll make a comment, I guess, about how we work with partners. So fundamentally, there is a reality that there is going to be an explosion in the cloud marketplace. There is, depending on which analyst report that you read, in the next 3 years, the marketplace is going to explode $100 billion. Some of that is going to be lifting and shifting workloads that currently exist in a data center and move them into the cloud. But so much of that is going to come from a wave of innovation in the same way that the PC unlocked so much innovation from a 3270 green screen, and Unix client server computing and the dot-com boom unlocked a wave of innovation that had been never even imagined before. The cloud is going to do that. The cloud is going to unlock that innovation, and some of that thinking is going to come from us, and a lot of that thinking is going to come from you all, and all of that is going to be facilitated by our partners. So whether it's the announcement that we made about with SAP earlier this year about SAP moving workloads into the cloud, right the way through to you may have seen recently about the Marketo agreement. Everything that we do, both in the terms of the delivery of the service and the evolution of the service, is hinged around partners. And Google has built an unprecedented infrastructure and an unprecedented amount of tools that is going to unlock that innovation. But we are very, very bought into the fact that the partners are going to create stuff that we've never even imagined.
How big a priority is this within the context of Alphabet, Google, et cetera? You may not give us numbers, but give us some sense as to where it ranks, because there have been some questions.
I'll give you a very simple answer. It's the #1 growth bet from Google, and therefore Alphabet all up. I mean, we have a very, very robust business. When I joined nearly 5 years ago, I used to sort of say I work for a startup. I just have really rich parents, so I didn't have to worry about making salaries. This is our bet. I mean, if you saw 2 years ago where we had Diane Greene come to lead the cloud business, I mean, she brings with her enormous credibility, enormous knowledge. She was a founder and CEO of VMware. She's done the startup thing. This is a very, very, very strong leader for us. For me, being she joined after I did. I think the biggest moment of intent was when Sundar moved the entire infrastructure team under Diane. So where I used to work for an organization with a few thousand people that was selling, Diane's organization includes the fiber, includes the data centers, includes the engineering team, includes the product team, and her mission is to be successful in the enterprise space.
So you're in the enterprise space, and for the insight of, let's say, everybody in the room who doesn't get to hear what the competitors are doing, can you give us some sense in the front lines of financial services relative to other industries, some of the conversations you're hearing and sort of what we should be expecting? Because there's a lot of stereotypes about where financial services is relative to other industries. And
yes. I mean, I think that financial services is a regulated industry, and that has connotations with the insurance industry, the healthcare industry, and so that does have an impact on a number of different things. Having said that, the financial services industry is also ripe for cloud and what cloud can do. I mean, simplistically, you look at the large grid workloads that are usually being run with tens of thousands of cores within data centers spread across all of the industry, highly compute, high data intensity. They're finding massive scalability and massive performance gains by moving that into cloud. You look at fraud detection, you look at fraud prevention, you look at all the things the Commissioner was talking about, not only sort of like detecting it, but then mitigating it and fixing it afterwards. All of these things fit very neatly within the cloud environment, but I think that that's only a percentage of what we're talking about. Other elements, again, thinking about the financial services, is that the call center, the dealing with the customers element of the business, is usually a cost center with very large numbers associated with it. We have the sort of like the emergence of chatbots and those sorts of things. That's going to be nothing compared to what the industry, in partnership with Google and others, is going to develop in terms of natural language interface. The machine learning capabilities and the natural language interface will rapidly change the relationship that your customer has. Being able to arm a customer service representative, should it need to go through to them, with a prediction on this is what we think the question is going to be, and therefore these are the answers, and it being there, massively reducing the time spent on the phone, massively increasing the sense of sort of like customer service that customer gets, and therefore the satisfaction, is going to sort of like completely revolutionize the way people look after their customers and therefore the loyalty, et cetera, et cetera.
So I know we only have a few minutes left, so give me some sense of the takeaways for the crowd, especially in the context of what you see Symphony doing and just, again, where the world is going. You know, I know that you're one of the partners. So what are some of give us a sense as to what's next for you in that front? Well,
I think that you know the synergies between Symphony and Google and Google's approach to the workplace are just fantastic. I mean, they have successfully launched in the last couple of years a phenomenal business within a regulated industry that enables people to collaborate better, leveraging the cloud. You know, Symphony is already in the cloud. Your customers are already in the cloud and leveraging that, and I think that's fantastic. And I think those synergies of enabling people to do their work better and to be more effective, and I think David said a word which I loved this morning. He said fun. He said, you know, creating an environment where people can actually get that work done in such a way where there's an element of fun in it. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. So I think you'll see us, in partnership with organizations like Symphony, continue to be focused on the individual within your organizations, continually to be focused on enabling that individual to be better at what it is that they do. And then we will wrap that with a level of insight around the data that you've got, whether it be just from a BigQuery point of view or machine learn models on data. And we'll begin to unlock more and more ideas that eventually we'll provide a toolkit that will enable you guys to develop something, whether it be internally or customer focus, that I think will sort of like change the way you do business.
And finally, since I was looking at the numbers in terms of the growth of their users, from where you sit, I am really fascinated, since the digital era is here and machine learning is here. Even in the 5 years you've been at Google, how quickly is the next wave of change coming? I mean, or can you quantify it in some way? Like, how nervous should we be? But it does feel like that it's accelerating and.
Hopefully you won't be nervous about this, but it is accelerating.
I'm CIO nervous.
So CIO nervous. I mean, I think that's a valid. But if you've ever spent any time with or in and around Google, they talk about 10x. You know, you 10x an idea, and everything is 10x. In the next 3 years, there is going to be a 10x growth in cloud usage. There's going to be a 10x growth in the cloud market. I mean, this is a reality that, you know, from 4 years ago to today, it's hugely different. That's going to be nothing compared to what we have from now to 2020 is going to be enormous different. And it's the same, if you think back, unfortunately this is my third decade in the industry, so I am that old, but you think back to 96, 97, and the dot-com boom, and where that was between that and the millennium, year 2000, that's going to pale into insignificance compared to what we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years with the leverage of the cloud, ours, others, and everybody's.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
And now the people that you really, I think, thank you very much. That was terrific. We have our customers. I think we call it the power of community, and now many chairs are going to, actually the movie-style chairs are coming up on stage, so expect a real show. And I'm not sure if we have all of our panelists here, but let me bring them up as I get. So we're talking, I believe, Adam Salem. It's almost like The Price is Right. Adam Salem, come on down. Senior Vice President, Head of Equities Technology at AllianceBernstein. So you can just come on up if you want. So Adam, and then we've got Pete Spera, Managing Director, Head of Client Intelligence Technology at JP Morgan. And
where do you want to start? Go ahead.
Patricia, I see Patricia. Patricia Shin, Global Head of Execution Services at Kepler Chevreux. and Ryan Burks, COO of Global Technology for T. Rowe Price. So welcome, everybody.
Pete, good to meet you.
And
Good to see you.
I guess I'll stand, which is good. Let me just go through. I want to start with each of you and give us some sense as to, first of all, you're all in with Symphony. How's that going, and when did it happen? So I'm gonna start down at the end there, Adam.
Oh, Pete.
Pete.
So,
Pete Sparrow.
yeah, we're all in. Today we have about
Can you hear yet?
We have about 60,000 people on the platform internally. We're communicating with about 65 clients, and it's taken off massively. I'm sure we'll get into it as we discuss it, but tons of bots, tons of APIs across the pre-trade, trade, post-trade life cycle, and it's been fantastic.
Okay, Adam. Thanks.
Yeah, we've been on Symphony for about 2 years now. The demand really started with our sell side back in, I guess, late 2015. Shortly after that, we realized that there was a chance it was going to be something much bigger and have a much bigger place in our enterprise. Over the course of 2016, we started to kind of develop it into a global product that everyone in the firm could use. Earlier this year, we deployed it to everyone's desktop, phone, tablet, and we have largely made it our kind of enterprise communication platform. We're still fighting the demons of Microsoft a little bit and trying to get it out, but largely it has taken over.
We'll talk about the demons a bit later. Patricia.
We had a bit of a slow start because everybody was so used to using Bloomberg. And so one day we just decided to take all the group chats off Bloomberg. And the next day it was up on Symphony. So people had to search, where's my news, and where's my flows. So then it picked up very quickly. So it's pretty much all internal for the time being. We just have one client, we have a cross-part, and that's working very well. Like Matt had mentioned earlier from T. Rowe, that the clients have actually the tags, and so they're just cutting out all the noise and just taking what they want to take, so becoming much more efficient.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
I was
Ryan,
actually,
hi.
hey, hello. I was actually pretty proud of our rollout to 6,800 associates until I heard Pete say 60,000. But where I will brag is our team that's sitting over here won the hackathon last night. So Pete, I don't think you can say that. They actually challenged me to just wear a #champs shirt up here, but I didn't think that would go over too well. But so we're about a year or so into the rollout at T. Rowe Price, and I would say we had a little bit of a slow start. We rolled it out to technology first. We wanted to eat our own cooking and make sure it was going to solve some of the problems that we were actually trying to solve. And then eventually rolled it out to about half the organization so we could get a proper training mechanism in place, because our diverse workforce is pretty comfortable at some ends with technology, and then some folks aren't as much. So we wanted to make sure that before we pushed it out to the entire organization, we had what we refer to as Symphony University. We had folks in place that could get people trained up so that we really, across the organization, could take advantage of the power of the network of T. Rowe Price. So as of about a month or two ago, the entire organization is on Symphony.
I want to step back, so I don't want to get in your light.
Yeah,
you got such a beautiful light on you. But it's interesting. You mentioned the demons of Microsoft. You mentioned Bloomberg. I want to get a sense as to, has this displaced any? I mean, inertia is a powerful force. Is it additive? I'm going to go to Mr. 60,000, Pete. So tell us, is this just something where you, from the top down, it's like you shall use this and we never want to hear from you again on anything else, or how is it being used internally relative to other options?
Yeah, I'm sure all our firms are rationalizing, similar and overlapping tool sets. How we're looking at it is the strategic angle that I think some of the other presenters earlier today looked at it. So I think one aspect on the platform has been just the senior community, that network effect, sharing on their wall, what's happening, strategies, how the business is evolving, where we should be focusing a large organization. And that gets the message out and eyeballs and people using it collaboratively. And then the second piece is really that interbank and interoperability workflow. Just so many tools that are just allowing you to inject intelligence and making people smarter and more productive throughout their day, whether you're in the development environment or whether you're facing off to clients. It's just been, it's just really taken off. We can't stop the ideas of opportunities coming in, so it's been fantastic. But we do have to rationalize some of the tools, and we'll be phasing some others out in time. I think we did something similar with our group chats, and we continue to let it evolve.
Yeah, and I think going from the internal to the external is interesting too, just in terms of how that's going. But in terms of when you say the demons of Microsoft, again, I want to get a sense as to how people are embracing this tool and even how you're developing it internally, what your aspirations are.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. So we've been largely a Microsoft shop for a long time. We're using their group chat and their communicator for one-on-one conversations. The group chat earlier this year, we ripped the Band-Aid, so to speak. We took it out of almost everyone's hands. And that was actually a pretty easy conversion. I think the tools that Symphony offer are just broadly and demonstrably better. So people were happy about that, and we migrated them, and that was pretty easy. The one-on-one communications with the communicator has been much harder. There's a real network effect there. So if you're on Symphony but you don't know if the other person's on Symphony, it's hard to trust that they're going to see it there. And even though it's on everyone's desktop, there's definitely a real tipping point that we haven't gotten to yet. Everyone has it on their desktop, but I would say only about 20% of actual one-on-one communication is there. I think there's a future where it's 100%, but we're a ways away.
It's interesting. And I'm going to ask you, did anything you hear this morning actually make a difference in terms of the tipping point that you're looking for?
I mean, I think there's a couple of different points there. There's definitely real value to be added outside of the network once you leave the walls of AllianceBernstein, and I think people are starting to see that. But for someone whose day-to-day job is mostly just involves communicating people within AllianceBernstein, it's hard to get them over that hump.
It's interesting, Patricia, because you come at this with a very different perspective. You know, Kepler Chevreux. Give me some sense as to, you mentioned Bloomberg, how it's displacing whatever other tools you've been using, and also just your aspirations, who you want to be communicating with, and within the Symphony universe.
Well, the way the usage, I think, is that when we have all the clients on board, because most clients still use Bloomberg, so we can't get rid of it, we can't save money. Although Symphony is cheap. It's that within, I think the thing we did first was none of the analysts had Bloomberg. So for analysts, it was difficult. When a news hit, there were, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 salespeople calling, sales traders, everybody's calling. And you can only talk to one person. And so I think having all the analysts on there and posting the research on Symphony, everybody sort of grasps that because they can get the answer, ask questions quickly, and get a response quickly, and so they look smarter in front of clients. So that was pretty good. But unless, what I heard today, all the various sort of networks, platforms, what we can add, then it becomes sort of a bigger platform. And having Symphony, you can look at FactSet, you can get news charts, Reuters news, and us also, we can set alerts so we can cut out the noise and just get what we want to just work. So I think that's great because as he has mentioned, if it's just a chatting thing, it's not very interesting, But if you get a lot more out of it, that's much better.
So Ryan, what are you getting out of it so far?
So a couple of things, and I would echo some of the points that the panelists mentioned, but if I could just kind of add to something that Patricia said really quickly. So I think something that we did that was a little bit different for us at T. Rowe, it's easy to jump to the rationalization story. So about a year and a half ago, we went through a refreshed technology strategy where we're looking at app rationalization across the entire organization. And that's really not a compelling why for the 6,800 associates at the firm. It's just another communication platform. It's another technology conversation where they're looking at us like, how does this really make us better as an organization? So the why that we started with is we've got associates across the board for our digital transformation on how we interact with clients all the way through our investments process into back office operations and technology. And we just started to paint a picture that when you've got bifurcated sort of self-imposed walls within your organization because you've got different communication platforms, you're hiring really smart people across the board. You're trying to change the way you interact with clients, but you've got these self-imposed walls that are not allowing you to be the strongest organization that you can be. So instead of starting with the technology story of why it's a better it or thing, we started with why we've got these things in place that are not allowing us to be the best organization we can be. It happened to coincide with a refreshed firm-wide strategy. So it was pretty easy for us to get people to rally around something that would unlock some of those doors, some of the knowledge within the organization. So some of the things that we've gotten out of it so far, I would start with technology in the organization and say, that, like many folks probably in the room or on the panel, when we have a critical situation, typically it was a number of people trying to get in touch with a number of people, get them on a phone call to try to resolve this issue. It's very easy to mention everybody that needs to be involved in solving this problem and quickly get to resolution. So that's starting in the back office of technology. And then I would say as you keep moving toward the front end of interacting with a client, when you're dealing with a client, whether it's a retail client or it's a project that touches a retail client or an RPS client or a global distribution client, getting the right people involved in solving that client's problem and doing that in a much more timely manner is a really compelling why. So again, bringing it back full circle, some of the things that we are getting is interacting more effectively with our clients, improving our research platform internally, and the way that we solve problems in technology. So the why was the primary driver, and moving away and eliminating some of these other technology platforms became easy at that point.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the strategic argument, because internally, a lot of people understand sort of the internal benefits and sort of seamless communication. I'm curious about the industry as a whole and how it becomes, anything becomes sort of the default platform. Is that something that, I mean, in terms of, I'm going to go to you, in terms of the ambition and aspiration of what you can do with this, now that you've got the most internal sort of usage, where does it spread from here, and what do you think are some of the ways in which perhaps, I hate to use the word work together, because that's not something that we like to use in any sort of competitive situation, but where are the areas where, in fact, you think that there should be more collaboration as an industry?
Yeah, Diane, I think Ryan hit it on the head about how we did our journey internally, and now we look to advance it together, right? So I think those same conversations of how to make internal folks productive, right, and get that research or get the information they need to be more productive on our same digital journey, we want that same collaboration, but we're all clients of each other's, so we want to share that same information, whether it's like commentary, research, trade ideas, anything in pre-trade, trade, post-trade. There's value all throughout the life cycle. We have people across our firms trying to communicate, and if we can get them seamlessly sharing information quicker, better, faster, that's how we view the platform. So we're excited that there's folks in this room and other people in the industry really adopting at a pace that we're adopting and investing in, and we hope others get there, because I think our view is the digital power and collaboration could just really expand exponentially.
Is the content important, things like the media platform? Give me some sense as to sort of the, as we see Symphony grow, and just as the platform evolves, your wish list, split screen, all sorts of things that make life easier. What do you think is a important tipping point for you in terms of usage and just sort of the ROI of this? I'm going to go to you.
Sure. I mean, I think the real benefit that we're starting to see is mostly in the trading community.
Yeah.
We've got counterparties on the buy side and the sell side, which AB has both, where we have these unstructured communications with them now, whether that be on ROIs or sort of bidding things for OTC instruments. And it's a really poor communication method that we in the industry use now. It's phone calls and emails and text messages and all sorts of things that are easy to misinterpret or hard to audit or just bad. And I think we've been starting to see the community embrace a sort of just messaging opportunity where it's just raw text that we're sending back and forth. But we're starting to get a little bit more advanced. I see interest starting to develop in more structured data being passed over the Symphony platform, but that it's a secure, reliable mobile platform that you can just reach out and it's totally auditable by our compliance team. That's a real benefit that we're already starting to see. I think we're going to see a lot more next year.
Do you think that these can coexist? Can you have multiple tools internally? You have multiple tools in the industry. You're sort of nodding or shaking your head. I want to get a sense from you, because I feel like there's that's one of the conversations a lot of people have is to what degree is 500,000 the important point, 1 million, where you really sort of start to see that people want simplicity in the office and external.
I mean, I'm nodding, and I'll jump back to what Adam said in a second. I'm nodding because it's, what we're facing in the industry is similar to what we faced within the firm of T. Rowe Price. If you've got multiple communication platforms within the industry, then you're always going to have the same issues. Are you on Bloomberg or are you on Symphony? And I don't mean to sound provocative, but there's a lot of things that we compete on, but just like Pete said, we're actually clients as well, right? We're partners in a lot of ways. So things like back office operations, not a competitive differentiator. Regulatory compliance, you could make the argument that maybe it is, like doing that well and in a timely manner. But we all have an interest in a communication platform that can allow us to do that and not worry about that and worry about actually running the business that we're trying to run. So I would answer the question that I don't think it's optimal to have multiple platforms. And I think in an ideal world, there would be one that the buy and the sell side is on, and that's how we communicate.
We talk about innovation as if you're all passive consumers and you're innovators yourselves. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the innovation opportunities and the way you're looking at this strategically? Go ahead, you want to say something?
Oh yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we've been focusing on at AB on the buy side, we like to consider ourselves, and we're very proud of our sort of straight through order building process. Yeah. But when we really started to look at the power of Symphony, we realized we're actually not straight through. We started measuring at the wrong spot. Prior to recently, our order building process started with the portfolio manager. Imagine he's at a news conference at Apple's headquarters in California. He might hear about an exciting new product, and he'll get on the phone and he'll call an associate who starts the order bidding process, or send an email or a text message, or write it down in a notebook and take a picture of it. It's bad. And what we started to build out is bots integrated into Symphony, where sitting right there in that conference, you can say, buy this much Apple, and that goes straight through our entire order building process into the execution management platform. We're getting into that state where it really redefines what is straight through. It's straight through from the moment that the portfolio manager makes the decision all the way through. And the mobility and secure platform that Symphony provides is a real enabler for that.
Any other innovation? I know you've been doing some in terms of JP Morgan. Give me some sense as to sort of how it's strategically you're using this differently than you've used other platforms.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways. Similar to what you mentioned, Adam, we're looking at the sales and trading life cycle, and just like you mentioned the internal piece, we're doing the same thing for clients. So a client can just chat us that order to buy Apple, and it'll execute right through our pipes. A client can come in and say, I want to be able to understand what was written on, say, Apple research. So get research content and just the whole, let clients self-serve through that front part of the workflow. I think internally the same thing with bots and APIs, where you can look for commentary, you can search for things across JP Morgan markets for our content platform. You can get in touch with folks, in the post-trade space and get the information you need on settlement information. So it's also a publishing channel, right? So the old days of just sending an email to a group email box, we're now putting content to clients over Symphony as well.
What's the natural progression within your firms? And I'm going to start with you. Is it to other parts of? Is it JP Morgan then plus other? JP Morgan Chase. Is it more functionality? As you look at what's happening today, what do you think is sort of what will we be talking about this time next year in terms of how you're using the platforms and who else is using it? Internally?
Yeah, for us, we have it across the entire corporate and investment bank, front to back, no matter what role you're in. So it's massive. We also have wealth management, asset management, right? Some of the other brands and parts of the firm are exploring it and looking at it as well, so we could have one overall communication theme across the firm. But where I think, at least in the investment bank, is that collaboration with clients and really getting more and more of us connecting through the platform, realizing that like today you might pick up that phone or chat, do you realize you're both on Symphony and you can have a better workflow and communication with our clients, not just internally. So I think that's the big push going into 2018. That's why I'm excited to see the room full and so many folks starting to participate and come on the platform. So we're excited about it.
It's interesting. One of the things that I think is fascinating is the growth trajectory. And even if we went back 3 years to when you sort of first heard the announcement to where we are today, has it been, in what respects has it been faster than you might have anticipated or slower? This is, it's hard to build out secure platforms. Do you have any thoughts on that, Adam, in terms of, or Patricia, in terms of just, where we are today and sort of where it goes from here?
Well, we started late, and we have a much smaller group, roughly 400 on Symphony. And for us, it was very important to get our research out. You can write the best research, and if you can't deliver it to the clients correctly, then it's useless. So Symphony helped us push quite quickly into the fintech world. So we've created other systems where quickly, when an analyst writes a piece of research, it goes into Symphony, it goes into our website, it goes everywhere very, very quickly. And then we created, what you call bots and, all the systems where you can do the searching very quickly, searching for stocks, searching for data, searching for, what are the stocks with the highest yields in the utility sector or XYZ. So that making things much easier for people to get that information through and out to the clients. So we're very much client-based, So, and now we're looking for more video, sort of, Skype video presentation to clients one-on-one or to a group of clients, and then sharing the graphics or the data. So we're sort of moving into that. So it really pushed us very quickly.
Ryan, what about you in terms of?
Yeah, I would say I think things are moving a little faster than I would anticipate. I remember just a few short years ago sitting down with Sashi and a few other people and talking about the potential of Symphony within T. Rowe Price. And I specifically remember leaving that room and thinking, seems like an intriguing prospect, but probably not going to get a lot of traction at the firm. In retrospect, it probably was a bit naive, but I would say that things moved rapidly to the point where we're not just talking about sort of the global rollout and using it for chat, but actually utilizing the bot concept for how we deal with clients. I mean, just ways that I wouldn't have envisioned just a few short years ago are actually becoming reality within the firm, things that we're actually planning around. So I guess maybe I was naive on the front end, but I'd say things are moving a little faster than I would have anticipated.
So let's say I'm one of the newbies, I'm a potential client coming in. What advice could each of you give me that you would have either done differently or that you think is actually going to be a very key component of how you bring this into the firm and use it? I'm going to start with you since you've got the broadest base.
Well, I mean, it depends on where you are in the journey. If you're really at the early life cycle where you're pitching it, right at the beginning, certainly you've got to get compliance, make sure you have the information barriers. Like there's a lot of questions legal and compliance have, especially when you're facing the clients, not just internally. So don't underestimate some of those challenges. I think the second piece is probably the catalyst with senior management to say, we realize where this can go. It's not just chat, it's that whole collaboration and workflow efficiency. Once you get enough senior leaders, or at least one catalyst at the level saying, I get the vision, I can see what we're all talking about here today, then it really moves. And for us, that's when it really moved, when we had some of that senior backing and all of a sudden, strategies and people posting and following it, it's just the network effect just made it enormous. But just don't underestimate some of those early steps about getting installed, understanding the cloud environment, how you communicate with clients, like that. That to take a bit more time. But once we got through that and had the right senior management influence, I think it just took off, and the ideas are coming out all over.
What about as it being used as a collaborative tool? Any examples that you could cite that might help us visualize it being used beyond messaging? You're nodding your head.
I would just, I was just speaking to one of our development managers this morning around the API for GitHub and collaboration between developers. I think that's been an interesting uptick for T. Rowe Price. It's just an example we were talking about this morning, and I see that starting to get traction across the technology organization in the coming months.
Any advice that you have, Patricia, since you're coming at this from a different perspective?
Yeah, what we're doing is we have various departments, and the way they communicate is very different. So we try to get the IT together with the department heads and understand how they want to deliver, what they want to deliver, and to work together to come up with a system and just a platform on the Symphony chats, in fact. So they have their own wall, and it's easier instead of really spamming us with messages constantly, that we're doing this and that. And that's helpful. So, I mean, we keep sort of Symphony police. So,
Symphony police?
Yeah,
Who
because
are the Symphony police?
we have my colleague Arno
Is there
here
some
who's in
Symphony
research.
police over there? Okay.
And myself, we basically, if somebody's doing something, we're like, no, put it on Symphony, use Symphony. And we get them off the email very quickly. So
it's more of an email killer than it is...
yes, because we want everybody to use it and communicate through Symphony.
Can you quantify for us sort of what, then versus now? Anything around sort of how people are using email? Obviously, email is something that's not just used internally, but to what degree can you quantify how those conversations have moved to Symphony that used to happen through email?
I think the email traffic is down roughly maybe 40%.
40%, wow. In the
Yeah,
space
which
of
is
how
great.
long?
I don't know, 8 months?
Wow.
Very quickly. So it goes. I mean, it's a tool that people instinctively use, Twitter and WhatsApp and all that, so it's normal for them to get used to it, and it's quick, and they hashtag, dollar tag, and all these things, and they're having fun with it as well. But you still need, I know sometimes people send an IB chat on Bloomberg because they feel Symphony, it's not reactive, whatever, because, so I just send a Symphony chat and just say, I'm on Symphony.
Right.
So we force people.
You want to reach the boss, it's the place you have to be. Well, how do you measure success? I'm going to ask each of you. I mean, do you measure it on, there's many metrics, there's email usage versus, there's financial, obviously, ROI. How are you measuring it right now?
Yeah, it depends on the type of community you are. So if you are, say, in the development community, developers, it's certainly the integration with GitHub and some of the other tools. But we look at the number of messages flowing through in pockets of the organization. We look to see who is connecting to our clients and the type of workflow changes that they need to enable. We certainly look at just if they have that digital commerce and vision, and if there's anything that others can help them, like understand the enablement and the journey we need to be on as firms and clients of each other.
Can you share any general, without getting too specific, general metrics that have been impressed you as to sort of the use case, and if you had to justify yourself to hire being for using
we
this?
see close to 2 million messages a day flowing through the platform. I mean, just to give people perspective of how much it's being used. And the mobile channel has grown in leaps and bounds. We have, just over mobile alone, over 1 million messages. So really showing that people are on the road and people that in different positions can collaborate.
Adam, what's your success story?
So our stats are much lower than that. Obviously, we're a much smaller company. So we're probably at 20,000 messages a day.
But it's all relative, right?
20,000 messages, yeah, but
that's not.
You can be on our hackathon team.
But that's not really how we're trying to measure success. We're trying to look at workflows that people do that have gotten better. So for example, one of the selling points that we've been starting to talk about and pitch to our business is if we've got a sales associate and they're meeting with a potential customer in a coffee shop in Oklahoma City, they are totally disconnected from the office, their data, anything that they want to present to their clients now. But when we can start to build these tools on top of Symphony and make that interaction better and make it better to close that sale and present more data to that potential customer, those are the metrics that we're looking at. We're looking at interactions.
So closing more deals?
Yeah, well, that's an example. But any type of interaction like that where it's better now than it was before, that's the metric that we're trying to measure.
Okay. How about yourself?
Oh, I was just, Adam hit it right on the head, and I think the way that we think about it is through the business capability model at the firm, right? So nothing we do in technology is for technology's sake. So we've got flows that we want to monitor, performance, throughput, whether it's TCA and trading. There's a whole variety of business outcome metrics that we're going to tie sort of use of Symphony to, right? And so I think Pete makes great points around sort of some of maybe the leading indicators that would produce results in those lagging indicators. So I can't wait to grab you over a coffee at the break and ask more about your metrics. But I would say ours are more going to be business outcome focused, less around sort of the use of Symphony, if you will.
So one thing we haven't talked about is partners. And as you go from 9 to 45 on plus, how important is that to you? I mean, just because since you're using the tool in a certain way, just having more platforms, is that transformative? What type of partners do you want on there that would be more useful? I'm going to go to you first, Pete.
Yeah, I think as you go and look at folks in the booth, it's it's the content, right? There's a lot of content providers, and we in our journey we're deciding whether we build versus buy. Like we naturally do that anyway. And there's some great vendors out there that we're partnering for content and enabling those workflows faster. So if someone has a tool that can be used to really improve the workflows, like Adam was saying, like that's really what it's about, like the collaboration and speed. So we have a ton of vendor partners. We're partnering with probably 3 or 4 of the firms outside to really make those workflows quicker, easier, faster, better.
If you had advice, if you could wave a wand and change anything or accelerate something, just because I know obviously there's always some friction as you're rolling out new tools. What would you change? What's the aspiration that again this time next year you could be saying is something that you have integrated into the platform or a functionality that really would be transformative Anything you'd like to say, Patricia?
I think that as a platform, if we could we have so many different things right now. It's fragmented. And if we could get all our providers, whether it's news or technology, and just put it all together, put it into the system, that would be great. And then I think it becomes cheaper as well and quicker. But also we have quite a few partners. First of all, we have Piper Jaffray, who's our US partner.
Yeah.
So we like to have them on board as well as all of our ECM partners who are the banks like Swedbank, Crédit Agricole, UniCredit, and Rabobank. So hopefully, I don't think it's that possible, but in a year. But we'll be pushing on our end with all our providers, technology-wise, and all our partners.
What about you, Ryan?
I mean, Pete and Patricia hit it right on the head. I would just echo the content portion of things. The more we can move T. Rowe Associates into the ecosystem of Symphony, and the more content that's available there, I think is probably the thing that I'm sitting here thinking for a year from now. If that's continuing to move at the pace it is, we're going to be in a pretty good place.
And let me ask, in terms of sort of advice to each other, perhaps might be one way to put it. But as you talk about people who are already on the platform, to what degree are you actually communicating with each other more? I mean, I know, again, we're talking about different uses, different relationships. There's certain, I don't ever want to talk to you, why would I, kind of. But I'm curious, sort of, as this community grows, to what extent does the community actually develop more ties and networks with each other? Because it's not just individual players it's the network between those players. Any thoughts, since you've got a broad ecosystem already?
Yeah, it's super important, right? So we want to see the other clients and peers and partners in this room just connect and get on the platform. I also know Gab and some other folks are here from the Open Source Foundation. We want that community, the open source, in there as well. Like, it's important with the vendors, and we can collaborate and just build things we all need. The click-to-dial integration, you were asking for some smaller features, the video ability, the content. I mean, David certainly knows, the views that we have for those pieces and features. So we're looking forward to that investment.
And how does it happen? Does it just happen by osmosis? Are you actually going out and sort of facilitating more contact through Symphony, the way that, if anybody wants to reach Patricia internally, that's where they'll find her? Is that the case for your firm?
We do both. We look at who's communicating with who over what channels, whether it's phone, email, like chat today, and we tell folks, do you realize the person that you're dealing with today, these people are on Symphony, and you can collaborate with them in a different way. That's number one. Number two is then we go back to the point about workflow, right? Here's how we think the workflows can improve for speed, efficiency, time, all right, hopefully revenue. And then the third level is reaching out to just our partners through open source, knowing that there's features that we all want to build, and we think we can collaborate together over the platform. It's what David mentioned earlier. It's a way to get that network effect, and we want others building, whether it's partners there or other people even outside the industry, to come and play a role in helping the platform succeed.
I want to ask a bit of a psychological question, which is, there's various players within the company that are adopting this. You've got your marketing, you've got your traders, IT. How is it? Is everybody embraced it equally? Do you find that there's some that are perhaps harder to convince, bring around? I'm just going to ask you, and you don't have to name names. You can talk general categories. Maybe.
No, I'll answer from maybe a different dimension that you were thinking. I think we've actually seen better adoption rates amongst younger people than we have some of the more senior people in the firm. We're thinking about sort of recent college graduates through maybe 10 years of experience. It's a generation who grew up living on their cell phones and text messaging, and they're the ones who are all about social communication, and they avoid face-to-face communication whenever possible. Yeah. And this is an enabler of that, and they have been all on board.
And they never liked email anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else? What about sort of within your firm? Do you find that there's particular groups that perhaps some groups are very external facing and they use a lot, and obviously traders sometimes are more, they want to be on certain platforms because everybody else is. How have you found the enthusiasm internally among different groups?
I can take a swing at it. I mean, I would say that up to now, I think we've seen equal levels of uptake, right? But the group that I would say could potentially slow us down a little bit would maybe be the sales folks. These are individuals at T. Rowe Price that are used to sort of being out there doing their thing. They're less connected until sort of later in the day, right? So
Right.
the day's over, we've made our touch points. I do see that once they see the value of potentially a Salesforce API and things like
Yeah,
that.
they can close the deal, right? They're
That's exactly right.
bringing it into the coffee shop in Oklahoma City.
That's exactly
So-
right. I don't anticipate it being a huge hurdle, but if there was a group that I could see a little bit more of a slow adopter, it could be the sales organization.
Patricia, anything you'd want to say in terms of the...
You know, we're stockbrokers, so for
Yep.
us, people who are used to IB chats easily converted to Symphony. So it's the execution team. And then probably, I agree, salespeople are a bit slower. And now the analysts who came late, but they're actually embracing it quite quickly. So I think we've created, instead of having a lot of noise, each room is quite specific. So we created rooms so that if you don't want it, you stay out of it, you know? And that defines what's important to you and what rooms I want to be in and what information I can find in these rooms. And you know,
It makes the business case more
that
clear.
helps. That helps, yeah.
So as we finish up, I want to give each of you the opportunity to basically give some takeaways to this audience, both as potential customers, as sort of what you think help us see around the corner in terms of your own usage and what you expect to be seeing, you know, again, this time next year or whatever point in the future makes sense. Pete, I'm going to give the first closing thoughts to you.
Yeah, it depends on where you are on your journey, and I'm happy to talk with folks during the break. But for us, I think it's what Ryan said earlier, is really you've got to start focusing with folks on the current kind of the digital experience and workflow and how you want to connect with clients and your workflows, and then it all rolls from there, right? So spend the time really understanding how to advance it, looking beyond chat, looking at the collaboration, how to be more efficient, and for us, it took off from there. It really did.
Great. Adam?
I would kind of tie back to something that David said this morning. Financial services really is a community. You can't trade by yourself, right? And while many of us may be competitors with each other, you know, trying to get to the same customers, at the end of the day, investing in a technology platform like this creates a more frictionless marketplace, right? It makes us better able to specialize and do the things that we want to do better. And I think if the entire industry can get on it, it's just going to move towards a more and more efficient marketplace.
Okay. Patricia?
Well, I think Symphony is very flexible, and flexible for the future. So I think that you have to go with the flow. I mean, I can say I've been in the business for 34 years, and I've seen the evolution from paper into what it is now, and it moves so quickly, and it's amazing. For us, I'm not IT. It all depends on the workload of the IT. But they understand, and having them understand our needs and how quickly it can go, I'm just bluffed. So I think it's very, very important to have this type of platform.
Great. Last words to Ryan.
Before lunch.
Yes, yes.
I think I would just sort of remind folks that you know, we never implement technology for technology's sake, so always start with the why, right? But I think more importantly, the one thing that I would mention that we didn't really talk about, and it is a Symphony conference, so I'll give them a plug, especially our technology community has thoroughly enjoyed working with a partner that's based on an open source community that understands the things that we want to accomplish as an organization. And I can't say that for all of the firms that we work with, right? Oftentimes it's a closed community. They've got sort of things that they're focused on. It's been since day one with the Symphony team that they're focused on what we're trying to achieve. And the fact that it's an open source sort of driven community is something that's been incredibly sort of interesting and exciting for us as a firm.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking our customers for being also, I think, among other things, it's not often that you get to open your soul in front of an audience of potential competitors. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for a terrific morning. We've got more to come, as you know. Please enjoy lunch now, and then there's 3 separate sessions going on this afternoon. Be sure to go to the booths to get your Apple Watch. Just go grab David's wrist if you want to take a look at it. And thank you very much, everybody. See you a bit later. Thanks. Perfect.